Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna start a new series. What if Deku found Sonic the Hedgehog Part 1? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
The servers are the seven chaos. A golden hedgehog plummets from the sky, his glowing aura violently flickering. Chaos is power. His golden brilliance turns to a deep azure blue as the light fades. Power is enriched by the heart. 6 of the 7 mystical gems that emerge from the hedgehog's unconscious body scatter like shooting stars across the skyline. There is still one. The controller is the one. After tumbling through the air, the blue figure finally crashes into the backstreets of a city he has never been to before. A man in a deep red plague doctor's mask emerges from the darkness. Behind the beak, icy, calculating eyes gaze at the body. After examining the creature on his knees, he pulls it into the alleys. That unifies the chaos. Shame. Sir Night Eye handed Izuku an earpiece, which he adjusted. Softly, the static crackled and then cleared. The voice of Mirio said, "We're clear on this block, but something feels off." Failure. Izuku's heart clenched in his chest as he thought, I shouldn't have let her go. Since they had first met Eri, that feeling had persisted. It was heavier, if anything. Disgrace. What does it mean to be a hero? I failed her even though she was right there. His gloves creaked as he clenched his fists. Then, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked over and saw Mirio grinning broadly. We'll save her this time. For sure. Izuku nodded, the shame fading a little. They had a strategy. The raid was almost upon us. And Eri would smile this time. As the two patrolled farther into the city, they noticed that the streets were now quieter and that the buildings were getting older and more abandoned. Then Izuku noticed something. Through the corroded crevices of an abandoned warehouse, a dim, white light filtered in. Like a heartbeat, it pulsed softly and slowly. He entered, and came to a halt. The air was under pressure. Not with heat, not the wind. Something more substantial. Like fog, it settled on his skin. He proceeded step by step until he noticed it. Hovering just inches above the ground was a white gem. Perfect. Alien. The back of his neck pricked with the energy that was vibrating through it. Surely the odd feeling had nothing to do with this gem, correct? He pondered. He extended his hand. Flash. Buildings were leveled as a monster emerged from the flooded city, its body a whirling mass of water and despair. A sleek, futuristic spaceship fired a cannon, a weapon aimed at the moon, blasting a piece of the moon's surface. And there stood a golden figure, burning bright as the sun. Red shoes shining with gold buckles, spikes raised. He simply stood there. The epitome of chaos arc of a space colony, the cannon of eclipse. The ultimate organism. Sonic the Hedgehog, Super. How Izuku knew those names was a mystery to him. However, they had a genuine feeling, as though they were not his memories. Midoriya. Panting, he jolted back to reality. Mirio gave him a worried look. You okay? You looked gone. Izuku looked down. His hand now held the gem in silence. Why yeah. Just tired, maybe. Let's head back. Still trembling, he tucked the gem into his pocket and trailed Mirio back through the alleys. Sonic. He muttered to himself. Why that name was so ingrained in his memory was beyond him. But he was aware of one thing. There was an impending event. Something significant. It was all dark, too gloomy. Where had he gone? It all felt different. Shut down. Close. No room to move. Like being stuck in a nightmare or an unending dream. Sonic blinked through the darkness and moaned, where the heck am I? His sensitive eyes were almost blinded by the sudden flashing of 5 bright lights above him. He saw the room he was in, or rather, trapped in, as his vision returned. He was strapped to a cold metal table by his limbs. Uncomfortable, shattered. They could have at least strapped me to a bed, he whispered. Sonic's arrogant tone persisted in spite of the circumstance. All right, Egghead, I'll give you 5 seconds to show your bald face before I dunno what I'm gonna do, but I will do something. A quiet, icy voice answered from the shadows. Egghead. I don't know who you're referring to, but surely it's not me. Sonic narrowed his eyes. A man in a long coat with a plague doctor's mask came forward. His presence was unnerving, and his voice was smooth but ruffled by the mask. Then who are you, and what do you want? Untie me so I can at least kick your butt with honor, Sonic said with a grin. The man leaned a little closer and said, my identity isn't important. His voice was uncannily serene. That quirk of yours. Even though you're an animal, you still have the intellect of a human. Surely your quirk enhances your intellectual capacities. My what? Blinked Sonic. Sorry, pal, I don't know what you're talking about. How about you tell me where I am, and then I kick your butt so hard you cry for a week. Or hey, turn yourself in, if that's easier. The man in the mask cocked his head. And how exactly do you plan to do that, in your current condition? When Sonic attempted to sit up, the restraints violently yanked him back. The strain caused his wrists to burn. It's no use, the man declared. Struggle all you like. You're in my lab now. Stay still and you'll be a good lab rat. He pivoted and made his way to the door. Hey, I am not a rat. I'm a hedgehog. Sonic squirmed in exasperation as he bellowed after him. However, the man had already left. Sonic looked to the far side of the room, where a small, reinforced window looked into another room. A girl sat behind the glass. Youthful. White hair. A horn. The maximum age is 7 years old. Like vultures, scientists and doctors surrounded her, taking notes and running odd tests. Sonic's gaze grew strained. The girl then pivoted and gave him a direct look. Neither of them moved for a long time. They merely gazed. However, Sonic could clearly see it in her vivid red eyes. Assist me. There was no scream. It was not necessary. Her eyes spoke for themselves. And Sonic's smile, for the first time in a long time, faded. It had been an hour or so since that quiet conversation. After the fall earlier, Sonic's entire body ached. His limbs were sore and stiff from the restraints, and his back screamed from the metal table underneath him. But his heart ached more than any of that pain. This was not the place for that young girl. Not in this location. Sonic ran. A free spirit. More than that, though, he was a hero. He needed to assist her. Regardless. The door hissed open once more as though the universe had heard him. The villain in the plague mask made a comeback, but this time he had a visitor. She. The same young girl. Eri. Her eyes were downcast as she entered cautiously and slowly. A glimmer of relief came to Sonic. She was alive. However, her gait, the terror in her footsteps, his blood boiled at the thought. Chisaki, icy as ice, stood behind her. This is temporary. She's no safer with you than she is with me. Don't touch her. Don't talk to her. Don't breathe too loud. Everything in this room is sterilized. I don't want your filth ruining my work. Fuck around and you'll never see the light of day again. Understand, rodent? Sonic's eyes narrowed. First of all, I already told you, I'm a hedgehog. Not a rodent. Secondly, don't curse in front of a kid, man. That's just bad parenting. Chisaki stopped at the door and cocked his head. Don't touch her. Don't talk too much. Don't contaminate my workspace. Everything in this room is sterilized. I don't want your filth interfering with my experiments, he said again. Then he walked out, the door closing behind him. Sonic returned his focus to Eri. She appeared worn out. She was too young to be so terrified, too little to have monsters all around you. His voice grew softer. Gently, he said, Hey, don't be scared, he's gone now. No answer. Hey. What's your name, kiddo? If we're stuck here, might as well be friends. She didn't answer yet. Sonic smirked as he made another attempt. Okay. I'll go first. I'm Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog. And unlike what Birdbrain keeps saying, no, I'm not a rat. Though, let's be real, he definitely has the head of a bird. That made me giggle a little. He teased, was that a laugh I heard? Don't worry, it's safe. Smiling doesn't hurt in here, unlike these cuffs. He gave a dramatic rattle of his restraints. Eri's mouth curled slightly once more. Advancement. She whispered, my name is Eri, still cautious. Sonic gave her a warm, sincere smile and said, Nice to meet you, Eri. Don't worry. I'll get us out of here. You can count on me. You know, you've got a pretty name. Kinda sounds like a breeze, you know. Like the wind. He smiled. Her head was cocked. Like wind? Yeah. Like when I run really fast and the wind whooshes by. That feeling of freedom. That's what your name feels like. Eri blinked. I've never felt that. Sonic's grin grew softer. Then that settles it. When we get out of here, I'll take you for a run so fast you won't even see the ground. Her eyes grew a little wider. Really, pinky promise. Eri's gaze lowered to her hands, then she lifted her pinky gingerly. Even though he was strapped to the table, Sonic managed to extend his own and make a small hook with one finger. Sealed, he declared. Eri moved a little nearer now, still cautious, still apprehensive, but nearer. She whispered, "You're not scared of him?" Sonic snorted. "Of Tweety Bird back there? Nah. I've faced way worse. Giant lizards, evil scientists, robots with egos the size of planets." Eri blinked. "You fight monsters? Are you a pro hero?" He winked and said, "I guess you could say that, it's kinda my thing." "Then, maybe," she said, lowering her gaze, "maybe you can stop him." Sonic's smile came back with gusto. "I will. Promise. You trust me?" She gave him a look. This time, I looked really closely. She then gave a nod. Sonic also nodded. "Good, we just need one thing." Then she whispered, "What's that?" "Hope." He grinned as warmly and brightly as he could. And lastly, after what seemed like an eternity, Eri returned the smile. Only a bit, however, it was genuine. Then he heard a strange sound, as though something was calling to him. He looked back through the same window where he had first met Eri's gaze. Then he noticed it. In the lab next door, a green gemstone hovered above a countertop. It pulsed as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Sonic was aware of that. An additional emerald was approaching steadily. Eri examines the green gem that shines through the window with interest. It was gleaming. Perfect. The power of the emerald's radiation is unknown. Eri didn't know what aura it gave off. It seemed disorganized, but in a way. Calm down. Secure. Even reassuring. Eri turns to face Sonic, who was beaming broadly. "Mr. Sonic." Eri called out, "What is this weird diamond?" "Eri. This might be our escape ticket. Just stay patient, okay?" "Okay. The ultimate organism. Sonic the Hedgehog, super." "Deku? Are you okay?" "You're mumbling again." "Was I mumbling?" The voice repeated, "Yes," in a playful yet worried tone, "and you still are. Are you alright?" Izuku looked in the direction of that soft, recognizable voice, and there she was. Uraraka Ochako. Two bangs fell to the side of her short brown hair, which perfectly framed her face. Her eyes were soft and warm with concern. She flaunted her strength and grace as her pink and white hero costume clung to her athletic frame, its details gleaming in the sunlight. She looked at Izuku. Lovely. A beat skipped through his chest. His face immediately heated up as he stammered, "You Uraraka. What are why you doing here?" With a slight tilt of her head, she said, "I'm here. For the mission. Just like you," as though she was perplexed by his question. "How am I able to be so stupid?" Wishing that the floor would engulf him, he buried his face in his hands. She leaned slightly closer and said, "Hey, is this about Eri? You know you can talk to me anytime, right?" He whispered, "Why yeah, kind of." It was only partially accurate. He was anxious about the raid, to be sure, but those odd visions he had been having lately, those vivid mental images, this emerald. It simply wouldn't go away from him. He had been plagued by it for days. "Hey, Izuku. Look at me," Ochako exclaimed abruptly, averting his eyes from hers and cupping his face. "Izuku? Basis for a first name? When did it start?" She became as red as he did when she realized what she was doing. To gather herself, she inhaled deeply. "Look, I know you're worried about Eri," she said with a slightly trembling voice. But you've never given up on her. This is your chance to make things right. I know you'll save her." Her eyes, those large, warm brown eyes that always seemed to tighten his chest, were so determined that he couldn't help but notice them. "You Uraraka? Could you let go of my face, please?" "Hold on. What? All this time, I was holding him." Embarrassed, she thought. Izuku added in a low voice, "Also, we're kind of floating. I think you activated your quirk." Ochako felt sick to his stomach. She instantly cancelled her quirk by pressing her fingertips together, and they both fell gently to the ground. She wanted nothing more than to flee and hide as soon as her feet touched the ground. "Uraraka." She came to a halt and pivoted. "Thank you. I'll save her this time, for sure." In spite of herself, she smiled. She greatly admired him because of this. Her stomach turned over, and her heart twisted slightly. She said, "Please. Call me Ochako," with shyness. "Oh okay. Ochako. Look alive people," cried Ryukyu, a giant dragon hero. "The raid is about to start, Sunich. You said we would be going soon," sighed Eri. I know, but it'll take a little more time than I thought," replied Sonic. "She will be going. But you're staying here to rot." Sonic looked toward the doors and saw the same villainous plague doctor he had come to despise. Looks like Birdhead decided to show up again. Hey, too bad me and Eri will be busting out soon, and there's nothing you can do to Santo. As I said, she'll be going, but you staying here. Come on Eri, let's go, they're here for us. Eri screamed and sobbed as he seized her arm violently, attempting to resist. No. Let me go. Suni I see. Eri, no. He tightened his jaw. She needed to be saved by him, he pledged. He was unable to let her go. Then he sensed it. His veins throbbed with a familiar rush of energy. Anarchy. Strength. Even so, it didn't seem as strong as his supersonic transformation. He sensed living. He looked out the window, where the emerald chaos was visible. The intensity of the energy it was emitting was increasing every second. The unflinching light continued to expand. Chaos is power. Power is enriched by the heart. Rewind Angel Island hung like a dream, far above the clouds. Sonic ran up the weathered steps to the shrine, where the Master Emerald, the gem that kept the island in the air, was buried. Knuckles was sitting cross-legged on top of the enormous rock, eating a bunch of grapes while his hair fell forward. Sonic yelled, "Hey Knux, what's good brother, what do you want Sonic? I swear to Chaos if you try one of you stupid pranks I will." No, don't worry Knuckles, I'm not here for that. You couldn't do anything to me anyway. You sure? I remember knocking the Chaos Emeralds out of you once, while you were supersonic. I'm pretty sure I could do something. First of all, that was a cheap shot and you know it. I didn't even know you existed and you just came out of the ground. Second, that's what I came here to talk about. Me beating the crap out of you? No, the Chaos Emeralds? Yeah, what about them? How do they work? Like you know when I turned supersonic to beat Egghead and everything. How'd I put it? Turn supersonic. After dropping his grapes, Knuckles closes his eyes and considers what Sonic had asked him. He ponders for a moment before opening his eyes and turning to Sonic. My people used to say this saying, which went like this. The 7 chaos are the servers. Power is chaos. The controller is the one who brings the chaos together, and the heart enhances power. All right. How is the power of the Chaos Emeralds related to that? Have you ever noticed that when we say something like, you go supersonic? On the brink of defeat, or is Eggman truly on the brink of victory? Yes. Sort of. Chaos is power, and the heart enriches power, goes the proverb. This indicates that the Chaos Emeralds respond to intense feelings, such as the heart, rather than merely giving you energy at random. The Chaos Emeralds are not connected to the mind. Rather, they are connected to your soul, to your feelings and beliefs. Your supersonic state is essentially an expression of those intense feelings, such as joy, rage, or despair. An interesting idea. I assumed it was simply, oh, I'm losing. Go really fast, and then I'll change. Not at all. You are asking the emeralds for power when you are in a desperate situation. Your metamorphosis makes this sense of hopelessness tangible. Although you don't need all 7 to make it happen, when you do, the energy is so strong that you transform into a different form. Whoa, I never considered it that way. When it comes to the emeralds, you sound like a genius, but when it comes to everything else, you seem so dull and dense. What is the intended meaning of that? That's exactly what I meant. Thank you also for the grapes. I was a little peckish. Knuckles notices that the grapes he was munching on are gone when he turns to his right. Suni I see. He had already left. Flashback ends. Sonic exclaimed, I get it now. As he allowed the energy to take over his body. Releasing the restraints that held him captive to the cold metal table, he stood up and concentrated. Power comes from chaos. The heart enriches power. The emerald floated even higher and began to move in Sonic's direction, shattering the window with the sheer force of chaos energy as it approached Sonic and gravitated around him. Sonic absorbed the emerald, absorbing the full force of chaos. His quills flared up and his eyes went red, but he remained blue. Not quite at supersonic level yet, but close enough. Not fully supersonic. He rushed out of the room, smashed the metal door, and looked around the corridors. Did I not promise you, Eri? I'll come to your rescue? Sonic sped through the corridors and caught up to Overhaul in a matter of seconds. Hey, did you miss me, Birdface? How did you manage to get away? Overhaul cried out in surprise. With his eyes changing from jade green to piercing red, his quills floating, unaffected by gravity, and an unseen pressure surrounding him. A barely perceptible green aura. Overhaul examined Sonic intently. Sonic was still arrogant and talkative as usual, but something was different. I'll give you 5 seconds to leave this place and drop Eri. With a faint smile on his lips, Sonic remarked, maybe you leave this clean, or we fight, and you get permanently disabled. You brave people never understand. Her peculiarity is a curse. Every peculiarity is a social scourge. I will rid the world of this abomination and create a new society as the Great Overhaul. Somewhere. Overhaul flew back a few yards as Sonic, moving like lightning, landed a sharp hook on his jaw and bounded forward, standing over him. Well, Overhaul, did I not tell you about my air quirk? Overhaul took a deep breath. You say speed? Yes, but not in a significant way. To put it simply, I'm constructed differently. With a dark laugh, Overhaul closed his eyes. You obviously don't understand my peculiarity, he said, taking hold of his arm. I don't even have to be aware. Even so, I'll beat your apology. Splat! Sonic recoiled as a searing pain tore through him. He had lost his left arm. He gazed at Overhaul's grotesque, deformed arm, as if a fragment of Sonic's body had been grafted onto him. Oh no! Sonic instantly retreated, fearing another assault. He hadn't gone for the legs, at least. The pain abruptly subsided, and Sonic looked down to see his arm returning, glowing a gentle yellow. He cast a glance behind him. Eri, weeping, terrified. Sonic's strength returned, but something twisted inside him, his insides tangled and racked with strange sensations, as her horn glowed, growing larger. Eri was out of control, her quirk was being overtaken by emotions and fear. She was turning him around. Sonic rushed to her and embraced her. Eri, hear me out, Eri, he shouted. She raised her head, her eyes glistening. Everything is fine. Don't be scared. I'm present. As long as you have me, nothing negative will occur. She calmed slowly, the glow fading. Your peculiarity is not a curse, Eri. It's fortunate. I was saved by you. She cried, I don't want you to get hurt. Because of you, not because of myself. I won't. Eri, you are a hero. She is a curse, Overhaul, still in shock from Sonic's blow, screamed. Almost forgetting that Overhaul was still present, Sonic let go of Eri. So much for saving an innocent girl. Remain here. With a wink at Eri, Sonic declared, I got this. The ceiling suddenly cracked, revealing a green-haired boy who was looking down at Sonic. Give Eri to me now, he yelled. What? I'm not the bad guy. A fist flew toward Sonic's face before he could finish. Sonic was able to dodge just in time because of his speed. If he had been a second slower, it would have been a kick to the temple. Look, dude, he's the bad guy, not me. Sonic gestured toward Overhaul. Sonic sensed it again, a call, a pull deep within. One more emerald. It was the boys. Look, kid, Sonic said warily, glancing at Deku. I'm going to leave here with Eri, and I'm not going to give her to a stranger. I've learned when to trust and when not to, no offense intended. He moved, putting himself between Eri and Deku for protection. In addition to, I want something that you have. I need something, so forget about that. What? The emerald. Give it to me. How are you? Deku raised an arm just in time to block Sonic's foot swing. The power you're tampering with is beyond your comprehension. That emerald is serious. I can't put my trust in you, not just yet. Deku, Eri dialed. Puzzled, Sonic glanced over his shoulder. Are you familiar with him? Yes. He once made an attempt to save me. With firmness, Deku said, and I'm saving you again, Eri. Sonic's eyes widened as he peered over Deku's shoulder. The overhaul had ended. He's disappeared, Sonic whispered. When Deku turned, the hallway was deserted. We need to pursue him, right now. Deku's body crackled with electricity, and as he ran forward, he was grabbed by the shoulder. First, get Eri to safety. I've got this. Reluctantly, Deku nodded before picking up Eri and sprinting in the other direction. Sonic mumbled, oh no, I forgot to take his emerald, later. He started to run after Overhaul. Eri gripped tightly as Izuku ripped through the winding corridors, searching desperately for a way out. There was an endless maze of corridors that seemed to loop back on themselves, each turn leading to another dead end, another odd test chamber. Something about this wasn't random. His breath was coming more quickly now, not only from the running, but also from the unease that was beginning to seep in. Why was the exit now inaccessible if he had located Eri in a matter of minutes? Then he realized, this was how things had been since Overhaul got away. The structure was in motion, changing, alive. And it was under Overhaul's control. A slow, deliberate step was heard ahead, followed by the sound of stone crumbling. Izuku was stopped in his tracks by the villain, who appeared straight out of the wall. "Hand over the girl if you know what's good for you, boy." Izuku's hold on Eri became more firm. "Don't you believe she has endured enough pain as a result of you? I mean, what more could you ask of her? As I previously mentioned, what was the name of your little hedgehog friend?" "Yes, Sonic, all heroes are doomed." Izuku's attention was drawn to a single word in Overhaul's monotonous voice. Hedgehog Sonic. The ultimate organism, was that him? Izuku knew that even though he didn't look exactly like the figure from his visions, different colors, different energy, the feeling was the same. Sonic was the world's best chance. The gem in his pocket was touched by his hand. Perhaps I ought to have given him the emerald. He was brought back to reality by a deep rumble that shook the floor beneath him. Cracks split beneath his feet, and the walls warped like breathing lungs. "Eri, hold on," he yelled. He instantly triggered full cowling, 5%, and leapt to his feet, barely avoiding the floor as it attempted to engulf him. Overhaul was transforming below, his body merging with the walls, floor, and debris he touched, absorbing them into his flesh. His voice distorted into a low, inhuman growl as his size increased. The man vanished in an instant, to be replaced by something hideous. An exception. An illness. A nightmare. Sonic sped down another corridor, rounding a corner with his sneakers scuffing the tile. Where in hell is he? Arg. He was unable to go that far. Thud. He was stopped just ahead by a wall that slammed into place. What the? Huh. Just 1 second ago, that wall wasn't there. The earth trembled under his feet, and the wall to his right started to slide away, slowly, deliberately, almost tauntingly. The walls, it's like someone's controlling them, trying to trap me, who could possibly? He felt it. Redesign. The reconstruction, the fusion, the arm. To distance himself from Deku, he was tearing down and reshaping the building itself. Sonic inhaled deeply to steady himself. Well, you want to play it that way, don't you? He closed his eyes and listened for the subtle traces of chaos energy, the hushed sounds of shifting stone and combat filling the stillness. Where are you? Come on. There, he opened his eyes. Now let's get chaos under control. Time and space bent around him as green light flared. He reappeared in the sunlight, his fur soaking up the sudden warmth. Daylight, at last. So much time has passed since I. Boom. He turned as the sound came from his left. Eri, holding on to a green-haired hero's back in the middle of a battle. Eri, are you oh? He jumped just in time to avoid a huge foot of solid concrete as a shadow fell over him. Oh right. Birdface, I almost forgot. Sonic curled into a ball, spinning faster and faster until he was only a blue blur, and then he bounded forward, slamming into the giant mutated Overhaul's chest with a sudden burst of speed. Yes, Birdface. 0, Sonic. 1. He had just finished speaking when the armor came back into shape. Hey Sonic. His armor is regenerable, Izuku yelled. I don't care. It's not the time. How does he know my name? You, Emerald, give me the chaos. You must put your best foot forward, but I have something, Sonic called. Izuku dug into his pocket and tossed it this time without thinking. Just keep shattering that armor, and I'll be back. Sonic felt the raw energy rush through him as the gem struck his palm, and he shot skyward in a flash, leaving a trail of light behind him. Heroes looked on in wonder from below. Is that, started Ochako. No, Midoriya isn't there. He's down there still. Ribbit, Sue said. Ochako's gaze returned to the battle. Now Izuku's eyes were nearly turquoise, blue streaks of electricity snapped across his skin, and his hair was sky blue. Eri's quirk glowed brightly as her golden aura enveloped him. Everyone gets a 100% complete cowling. Sonic's momentum reached its maximum above the clouds. It was this. He spiraled around him in tight, blue orbs of energy. Lightspeed attack. The motion returned to him like breathing, even though he hadn't used it in years. Ready, he whispered. Go. Like a comet, he plummeted downward, his already ridiculous speed compounded by gravity. With all the momentum and speed he had accumulated, he uncurled and slammed an axe kick into Overhaul's head, causing the air to crack and then shatter. The shockwave ripped through the streets, with concrete exploding outward in a huge crater. The beast was motionless. Every muscle in Sonic's body burned as he stumbled back to the ground. He saw heroes cheering to his left and medics carrying injured people to his right. Hey, Mr. Sonic. Eri's tiny arms encircled him, her tear-streaked eyes. I was so scared, I thought you were hurt. With a slight smile, he said, I told you, didn't I? You're secure now. His knees buckled and the world went dark as the chaos energy left him. Ares' smile in the golden light of the fading sun was the last thing he saw. Around him, everything was completely dark, once more. Sonic's head throbbed, pulsing as if it had its own heartbeat, and his entire body ached when he woke up. This time, however, the ground beneath him was soft and warm. A bed. Not a metal table, cold and uncomfortable. A comfortable, warm bed. They even gave me a bed. He thought that was a great example of customer service. He opened one eye, exposing his face to the sunlight. You're finally awake. Sonic looked to his right and saw a man with long, untidy black hair, weary eyes, and what appeared to be mummy bandages around his neck sitting in the chair next to him. He exuded the same, if not more, weariness that Sonic did. Oh, am I familiar with you? Did Sonic ask? My name is Shoda Aizawa. You must be Sonic the Hedgehog, am I right? How did you? Eri filled me in on you. The way you saved her and treated her. Eri? Is she alright? I'm hoping she's alright. However, Sonic, we need to talk about more crucial issues. Okay? Continue. I take it that you do not possess a provisional hero license? What? Hero license? You mean that in order to save a child's life, I need a license? Really? He yelled. Don't worry, I'm not finished. In a technical sense, you do require one. However, the government chose to issue you a warning in light of what you did 3 days ago and the fact that you saved the city. The legal action would have been much harsher under different circumstances. Be appreciative, Aizawa stated bluntly. I've been out for 3 days. 3 days ago. All right. Where can I get one, then? Do I have to pay a fee? It's not that simple. You must first enroll in a hero school. Fortunately for you, UA recognized your innate ability to fight and your quirk. You have been offered a full scholarship by High. Do not misunderstand. We still do not know your identity or affiliations. It's possible that you are a villain. The objective is to monitor you, and me in particular. The rest of the faculty voted you in, despite my personal opposition. All right, so, did I mention that you could speak? His tone was piercing. Sonic swallowed. As I was saying, you'll have to pass several academic tests to finalize your enrollment. Academics? This seemed like a hero school to me. Why would I have to learn math or English? UA continues to be a high school. The exams are scheduled for tomorrow at 14:30. When you're released, I'll give you a tour of the campus and residence halls. You'll be in my class, Class 1A. I'll be watching you. He got up and walked toward the door. By the way, you have some visitors. Guests. Who could? You're all right, Mr. Sonic. He turned to see Eri and Deku in the doorway, and he recognized that voice immediately. Hey, Sonic. I wanted to express my gratitude for your assistance in opposing Overhaul, Izuku said timidly, and I believe this is yours. He took a green and a gray emerald out of his pocket. You fainted and dropped these. I thought I would keep them for you. Whoa, man, thanks. We didn't really introduce ourselves. Good to meet you. My name is Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm Izuku Midoriya, but some people call me Deku. Nice to meet you, Zuzu. They were silent for a moment before Izuku finally said. Sonic, tell me, are you from here at all? What are you saying? Are you even aware of the nation we're in? He acknowledged. Yeah no, I don't. What does the name Japan tell you? What kind of silly name is that? Ya, Pan. Why wait, hold on. Are we on Mobius at all? Mobius? Did you come from there? Sonic was no longer paying much attention. He wasn't on Mobius, he wasn't at home, and to finish it off, he was by himself. All right, Zuzu, give me a moment of your attention. This world is not where I come from. I need to return home, but I have no idea how or when I got here or why some of the emeralds are here as well. But how are you going to accomplish that? We couldn't possibly lend you a spaceship, would we? Sonic said, Chaos, emeralds, slowly. To put it succinctly, there are 7 Chaos emeralds. These infants have a great deal of power. They could also be my way home. However, since I sense no Chaos energy in the area, he paused. They are scattered across the whole world. What? The teenager began. How are we going to? It makes no difference. I just ask that you keep this quiet for the time being. I take it you know how to keep a secret. Though it nearly fell out of his mouth occasionally, Izuku reflected on his already enormous responsibilities and wondered how hard it would be to maintain the secret that there were aliens among them in a society that already resembled that of aliens. Then he swallowed. Yes. After that, it's resolved. Look, I don't want to put you through this, which I most likely started. I'll look for the Chaos Emeralds myself when the time is appropriate. Remember, we already have 2. So, when is the right moment? Good question. I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, I'm more of a go-with-the-flow type. Right, sure. Aizawa was waiting in an old, dilapidated black car, and after a few minutes of driving, Sonic and Midoriya were finally released from the hospital, and the tour started. Whoa! What is the school's wealth? It's nearly as large as the hospital. Somewhere in there ought to be a chili dog stand. Midoriya looked at him incredulously. Chili dog? You're unaware? Oh no, this world really is doomed, Sonic said, clutching his chest dramatically. You're not here to eat, Aizawa said, ignoring the conversation entirely as he parked the car in the enormous front lot. You're here to test your ability to stay up. With what? A track team. Because, spoiler alert, you'll be the ones trying to keep up with me, said Sonic, grinning as he leaned against the car door. Sonic craned his neck at the buildings, the training fields, and the sheer volume of teenagers in costume milling about as they went through the tall front gates. So, you think this is your hero school? It appears more akin to an insane fashion show. That's our support course, they're the ones that help us build our hero suits and gadgets, Midoriya murmured. A course of support, huh? I bet they're unable to produce sneakers that can withstand my maximum speed. A tall boy with engines in his legs strode by before Sonic could say anything else, pausing to salute Midoriya. Midoriya, good afternoon. And who is this? Without hesitation, Aizawa uttered the words, a tourist, one who is about to discover whether he belongs here. Sonic grinned and said, don't pay attention to him. Sonic the Hedgehog is who I am. However, some refer to me as the Iblis Trig, Knight of the Wind, fastest thing alive, or the Blue Blur. You already have a hero name, which is nice to see. Oh, well. I'm Tenya Iida, the class representative for Class 1A and a potential future hero. Sonic is my real name though. Oh, Sonic the Hedgehog. I apologize, it was not my intention to presume. Sonic leaned in Izuku's ear as he continued to babble. Does he act that way all the time? Or is it simply my inexperience? Midoriya remained silent. Iida, it's good to meet you, but I must ask, are those engines in your legs? I'm glad you noticed. They are engines, indeed. This is one of my peculiarities that enables me to move far more quickly than the average person. Dude, sometimes we have to race. I already adore this school. As the day drew to a close, the trio returned to the Class 1A dorms after continuing to explore the school and all of its amenities. For the time being, you'll be sleeping here. You will remain in these dorms if you pass your exams tomorrow. You return to the streets if not. Troubles? Do you think I'm a rat because you say that? For the sake of chaos, I'm a hedgehog. You must be able to see things with your dried up eyes. Ignoring that insult, Aizawa opened the door to the dorms, and as the door slammed open, everyone turned to look at the small trio of students, 2 in the living room and a few in the kitchen, cooking. Pay attention, class, you'll be meeting a new person. He is not necessarily superior to you or the other way around just because he received a scholarship. You understand that I want you all to treat one another with dignity? The students shouted back, yes, Mr. Aizawa. All right. Show him around, please, Midoriya. I'm already sick of his annoying demeanor. The common area was humming with conversation when Sonic entered the dorm and looked around the room. Ochako's eyes widened a little as he looked up from the couch and said, wait, I think I've seen you before. In a good way or a, you owe me money way? Sonic asked, tilting his head. No, I mean. You were with Izuku during the whole overhaul thing, she said, laughing. You two were shown fighting side by side on the news. By the way, my name is Ochako Uraraka. It's Sonic the Hedgehog, but Sonic alone is acceptable. You can also call me your amazing Ness if you'd like, he said, laughing. However, the news undoubtedly didn't sit well with me. With a somewhat ashamed expression, Midoriya rubbed the back of his neck. It was a little difficult to miss. They played the video repeatedly. I suppose my popularity is unavoidable. Are you the only one who calls Zuzu by his first name, or is it just me? He asked. Sonic had struck a tender spot, and they both blushed angrily as they looked at one another. Midoriya will not withstand his taunting, he smiled. Kaminari leaned over the backrest of the couch and said, Whoa, that was you? You looked so fast in those clips, man. Crazy fast is my baseline, Sonic said with a grin. You should see me when I'm trying. Kaminari grinned and said, I guess we'll find out. Come race me sometime. You don't know what you're up against. Todoroki glanced up from his seat across the room, his eyes lingering on Sonic for a moment. Cool hair, said Sonic. Todoroki said flatly, likewise, and then turned away. With a raised eyebrow, Sonic said, a friendly bunch, huh? In a whisper, Midoriya said, that's actually friendly for him. Sonic zipped through the common room to look at whoever was cooking and to take a look at the food when he smelled something coming from the place where he hardly remembered the last time he had eaten, but his stomach seemed to remember because it made a loud and low grumble. The cook, who had piercing red eyes and spiky red hair, turned to face Sonic. Dude, that video showed you having a great time. That is incredibly manly. I suppose you could say that, Sonic said, bumping his fists. At the end, I believe I saw you too, standing next to a large yellow ball person or something. You were assisting those who were hurt. You're a pretty man. Thank you very much, man. Is there a fire? From the common area, someone inquired. The pork chop inside the skillet is fully darkened when Sonic and Kirishima turn to face the stove. For both of them, oh crud, Sonic continued to mingle with a lot more people, including a girl who had audio cables hanging from her earlobes, a guy who was half bird, half man, and a pink girl who made him think of Amy Rose too much. Boom, from the upstairs rooms came a loud explosion. Deku. That blue roadkiller you fought with, who the fuck is he? Iida got up and said, Bakugo, stop. You are aware that it is absolutely forbidden to act aggressively toward. Four Eyes, shut up. I can't believe it, wait, Cap-chan, Everyone appeared a little frightened or uneasy, but Sonic maintained a sardonic smile as Bakugo approached him. Kachan, what? You know, it can't be healthy to yell and swear all the time. Have you ever tried speaking in lowercase like everyone else? He spoke with an unrelentingly arrogant demeanor. Roadkill, what the fuck did you call me? Hey, I'll fucking murder you. I hope you give it a shot. Even touching me while I'm sleeping would be impossible for you. And then Sonic had a thought. Don't they have training grounds here? What if we engaged in a brief sparring session? I will give you 3 days to get ready. That's more than enough to make you consider scratching me in your dreams. You are amazing. I'm going to murder you, friend. All bark, no bite. Hell, your threats are so baseless that you don't even have any bark. With a mumble along the lines of, I'll fucking kill him, Bakugo stormed off, but Sonic was unfazed. How did you accomplish that? Wow, Kirishima uttered. What should I do? You actually refused to back down from Bakugo. Kaminari continued, uttering the word Bakugo as though it were a legendary being. Really, man, people usually either yell back at him or hide, Kaminari said, shaking his head. You simply grinned and roasted him. Hey, said Sonic with a sly smile, I call this a Tuesday afternoon. Kirishima chuckled. Dude, I think you just made yourself an enemy and a rival at the same time. Good, Sonic remarked, nonchalantly leaning against the wall, keeps things interesting. Tomorrow's going to be exhausting, Midoriya said, sighing and pinching the bridge of his nose. Relax, Zuzu, replied Sonic. I'm just here to run fast, pass whatever crazy tests you guys have, and maybe find the chili dog stand. Midoriya started to say, there isn't a chili dog stand, but Sonic was halfway across the room, looking through the snack cabinet as if he owned the place. The rest of the class watched him go from person to person like a blue blur, talking, laughing, and somehow becoming friends in minutes. A few glances were exchanged, and it seemed clear that this hedgehog would either blend in perfectly or cause complete chaos. Additionally, based on Sonic's smile back at them, most likely, it would be both. Across the paper on the desk before him, Sonic dragged his gaze. The passage about flowers and spring was a bit too dramatic. Taking a deep breath, he gazed down at the poetry worksheet as if it were a ticking time bomb. Sonic whispered, so, this guy wrote about a flower. Why's everyone acting like it's some big tragic metaphor? Maybe he just liked flowers? Kaminari snorted at the door as she was ready to go. Guess deep reading's not your quirk, huh? Aizawa sternly remarked, shut it Kaminari, let the boy concentrate. Sonic retorted, oh, I can read deep, just not when the author's trying to make me cry over a daisy. Sonic didn't expect literature when he woke up this morning, but he had anticipated training, sparring, and possibly even a pop quiz on hero law. Getting out of bed, taking a quick shower, and going to the kitchen for some food was how his day began. He then opened the refrigerator. Components. Only ingredients. No ready-to-eat food, no leftovers, and no frozen meals. He swallowed. He would have to cook as a result. He began removing as many random items as he could, including fish, eggs, peppers, milk, and pork chops. Taking a deep breath, he turned on the stove and, like a crazy scientist, threw everything into the skillet. It made him think of the last time he had been near a stove, which was months ago, when Amy had enlisted his help in helping her cook. And when he said he was helping, he meant taking items out of the pantry while she handled all the cooking. "Oh, we're out of pasta. Sonic, can you watch the food? I'll be right back," she'd stated. "Yeah, and no problem." He recalled looking down at the sizzling bell peppers, carrots, green peas, and onions in tomato sauce with the heat on the lowest setting as she departed. Then he had the brilliant idea to increase the heat to speed up the cooking process. With a sigh of satisfaction, he turned the dial from 2 to 8 and walked to the living room to watch television. After 5 minutes, the scent of smoke reached his nostrils. A black cloud billowed from the skillet as he whipped his head toward the kitchen. "Oh no, 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 no." Sonic snatched up the closest bucket of liquid and threw it onto the pan, thinking quickly, or so he believed. The issue? It was oil. Whoosh! Firework-like flames erupted. Amy rushed through the door and met his eyes as the fire raged. "Sonic, I was gone for 10 minutes, what the chaos did you do?" "Man," he thought, "I'm cooked. Sonic, the food is burning." At the sound of Ochako's voice, Sonic abruptly jolted out of his daydream, or day nightmare, to reveal the stove bare of blackened ingredients. With haste, he switched off the heat and tossed the charred food aside. I mean, a hedgehog can't get a break, can it? He would also be late for his very first class if he didn't leave now. Although the test was set for the afternoon, Aizawa had told him that, despite not being a student yet, he still needed to go to regular classes. Sonic thought there was nothing worse than going to school hungry, so there couldn't be anything else wrong, could there? At that point, he was shown to be mistaken by the literature test. At last, he gave up and handed Mr. Aizawa his exam sheet, who gave him another sheet of paper in exchange. Science and chemistry is a new test. For a few seconds, Sonic examined the paper, looking at formulas, true-false questions, stoichiometry calculations, and other things. He carefully read each question before picking up his pencil and writing each response at an incredible pace. "Done," he cried, giving the mummy man the exam sheet, since Sonic enjoys calling his teacher. He glanced at his responses for a moment, his eyes devoid of any passion. He said, "It's all correct." His voice carried a hint of surprise that Sonic could pick up on. With a voice full of energy and ego, he answered, "Hell yeah, it is. Hang around a genius two-tailed fox for a while and you pick up a thing or two." "What? A two-tailed foe? Never mind, don't worry about it." Then math was involved. He completed the test nearly as fast as the last one. English is no different. Then geography arrived. He didn't know where anything was because he wasn't from this world. He didn't even know where he was at the moment. He barely passed the test despite relying solely on luck. Additionally, he had to make educated guesses about history, organizing each event in a mental logical sequence. Sonic's brain felt as though it had just completed a slow-motion marathon, and he finally stretched his arms as the last paper was gathered. Aizawa's voice was as monotonous as a robot reading a grocery list. "That's it for today," she said. "Don't cause trouble until the actual physical evaluation tomorrow." "Physical test? Didn't you say that it was only academics? Not that I'm complaining though." "Yes, I did say that, but Class 1A takes a physical test once a week to monitor their performance and physical development." "What? Though I can't guarantee I won't do nothing. It's interesting," Sonic muttered, halfway to the door. He saw Iida waiting in the hallway on the way back to the dorms, arms chopping the air as if he were attempting to guide invisible traffic. "Oh, Sonic, I hope you gave your exams your best effort." Iida spoke with a tone of seriousness that Sonic was still unaccustomed to. Sonic smirked and said, "Yeah, I tried my best, with the exception of geography. I got chewed up and spat out by that thing." "You ought to have asked for a study guide in advance. It's crucial to be organized." Sonic interrupted, giving him a shoulder pat. "And you should try not to talk like a walking rulebook," Sonic said. "Dude, lighten up. You will burst a gasket." Before Sonic zipped past him, Iida huffed but couldn't help but smile. The common area in the dorms was bustling with the usual mayhem, with Ochako leafing through a cooking magazine at the table, Kirishima narrating a story to Tokiyami with large arm gestures, and Kaminari sprawled across the couch playing video games with Jiru and Hagakure. Hey, Hedgehog. After those tests, how is the genius life treating you? Kaminari called. Sonic leaned on the arm of the couch and remarked, let's just say math and science were my jam, English was tolerable, and geography was like trying to find my way out of a maze blindfolded. Kirishima chuckled, you still have speed and intelligence. I wish I had that combination, man. You've got enough hair gel to survive a hurricane, so you're already winning, Sonic replied. When he saw Uraraka reading a magazine, he went to the pantry to get something to eat. In order to find out what was so captivating to her, he approached from behind and peered over her shoulder. What you reading, Coco? Nothing from a magazine could be this fascinating, he teasingly said. She turned around to show Sonic what she was reading, a little startled. One day, I hope to try cooking the recipes I've been reading. I came across a pancake recipe that cooks in less than a minute. I immediately thought of you. Because I'm sweet and irresistible? Sonic smiled. Because you can probably make it without setting the kitchen on fire this time, she joked. Hey, that only happened once, twice. Yesterday was Kirishima's fault, not mine. Sure, I'm telling the truth. Are you aware of Izuku's location, by the way? Since returning from classes today, he is the only person I haven't seen. Izuku? I believe he is sparring with Bakugo at the training grounds. He grinned more broadly and said, hey, I thought you'd know. Anyway, see you later. He zipped through the halls, leaving Ochako wondering about herself. What does he mean when he says oh? She blushed furiously, and Mina Ishido, who happened to be passing by, saw and approached Ochako. Who made you blush so much, girl? Is Midori involved? Cease. Stop it, please. It's embarrassing. We are all aware that you two are attracted to one another. In fact, Sonic arrived yesterday and already figured it out. Take action. The hots, no, she was unable to complete her sentence. You can't even tell yourself that you don't. Now take action and stop being a wimp. The blush on Ochako's face spoke louder than words could. The air grew colder as Sonic walked through the complex's corridors and made his way to the balcony overlooking the training grounds arena, where he saw Bakugo and Izuku, his two rivals, fighting fiercely on the field. As he watched the two fight, he saw that Bakugo and Midoriya were at odds, but it wasn't just hatred. Bakugo pushed, insulted, and exploded, while Midoriya responded calmly and resolutely. Sonic recognized the exchange. It wasn't exactly the same, but the tone and intensity were similar to his own rivalry with Shadow. Bakugo was pushing him away while Izuku was drawing him in. However, unlike those two, Sonic and Shadow never felt the need to prove their superiority to one another. Although it was satisfying to win their sporadic friendly matches, Sonic had always viewed Shadow as a solitary individual who could take care of himself, and he always had some respect for him despite all the taunts he directed at him. However, he starts insulting and attacking Bakugo when he looks at him. He noticed a range of emotions in his eyes and movements. Not sadness or rage, but rather angst-anger. Disgrace, perhaps jealousy. Additionally, he notices when he looks at Izuku. Commitment, showing respect, kindness, respect. Despite being complete opposites, those two had one thing in common. Passion. The will to fulfill their aspirations and goals. I witnessed your resistance to the overhaul. You depend on your speed too much. Sonic shivered a little as he snapped his head to see Todoroki standing there, his half-hot, half-cold presence making the air feel like summer and winter all at once. What can I say, then? Speed is my game, Sonic is the name, Sonic said, gritting his teeth. Sure, Todoroki replied, but you're not much of a heavy hitter and you don't have any long-range attacks. You're worthless from a distance. Hey, when I can close the distance in less than a second, I don't need long range. Thinking about him, Todoroki said, how about I show you? Let's spar after Bakugo and Midoriya are done. Yes. I need to get some adrenaline in my system soon. However, try to last longer than 10 seconds. Todoroki nodded and turned to leave, saying, HMPH. This guy needs to lighten up a little, Sonic muttered. Boom. When Sonic spun around, he saw Izuku being blasted out of the ring by an explosion that appeared to be coming from Bakugo's hands. That must be his peculiarity. Fascinating. He landed on Izuku's left after jumping from the balcony, then knelt down to examine Midoriya. Are you okay, friend? That one was huge, Sonic remarked. Yes, indeed. Izuku wheezed, he takes it too seriously, but I'm fine. I observed. Well, Now that you're all finished, I need to warm up and work out a little with Color Boy. Blue Rat. Hello. Did you see this? I'm going to kill you in 2 days that way. Bakugo chirped, this time without yelling. Loudmouth, you can talk all you want, but you'll have to back it up. Color Boy? Do you mean that you and Todoroki are sparring? Izuku inquired, bewildered. Yes. Although he stated that he wanted to show me something, I believe I will be the one to do so. All right, good luck. Todoroki has a lot of strength. Very powerful? I eat a substantial afternoon snack. Sonic had fought a time and space-eating god, a power-hungry genie, and even a corrupted medieval king. The only difference being that he had a talking sword on that last one. But Izuku didn't know that he had done much more than a simple powered-up teenager. Hedgehog, are you ready? Sonic turned to see the same teenager he had just mentioned, wearing plain black shorts and a black sleeveless compression shirt. You had enough time. What did you want to show me, then? Sonic felt his shoes lose traction and slip as the ice crept under his soles. Todoroki placed his hand on the ground. The air was cold. Frost licked the mat. Ice spread outward in a slippery, glittering sheet. Todoroki silently observed him and remarked, you do best on ground you can stick to, but what happens when the ground isn't on your side? You've studied me, Sonic shrugged. You haven't studied enough, though, he said, rubbing his quills before curling into a spin dash with his back to Todoroki. These babies aren't just for looks, they help with grip. Like a blue bullet, he launched himself. Todoroki raised a wall of ice, which slowed Sonic. Sonic then tore through the edge, causing the wall to collapse under the force of the impact. Todoroki barely avoided it, uncurled, and landed. However, the ice betrayed him, causing him to lose his footing as he slid to the field's edge. Sonic was completely cornered, but Todoroki didn't finish him, and a fist of flame rose inches from his muzzle, not to strike, but to stop his motion. You're not going to kill me, then? Sonic gasped and steadied himself. That wasn't the goal, Todoroki stated calmly. I was attempting to expose your shortcomings and errors. Given what you did against that villain, I doubt I'm stronger than you, but I am better at some things. Wow. Thank you, huh? Sonic blinked. You store potential energy that is converted to kinetic energy when you run. You should learn to direct it into a variety of outputs, such as energy projectiles or controlled bursts, rather than allowing it to transform back into potential energy. In this manner, enemies who reduce your speed cannot stop you. Oh, I never considered my power, quirk that way, Sonic scowled. Would you instruct me? Todoroki said bluntly, no, Sonic winced, I assumed you. The concept of our quirks is different. Ask Midoriya if you would like someone to teach you how to do that. He's a better fit. His quirk deals somewhat with kinetic energy too. Todoroki's tone was neutral but curiously pragmatic. All right. Okay, I appreciate the advice. I would have blitzed you in less than a second if the ground hadn't been frozen. I understand. However, I can't allow you to do that right now, can I? You will battle those who know everything about you when you are a hero. You must have additional strategies that they won't be aware of because they will be ready and will have a plan to counteract your speed. Huh, yeah sure, you've got a couple of my quills on your leg though. He noticed 5 spiky blue strands emerging from his calf on his right leg. He's a problem because he somehow managed to hit me despite the frozen ground. When he looked up, he saw that the field was deserted. Sonic had already left. Sonic wandered back into the common area to see how his new friends were doing after taking a quick shower. Sonic raised an eyebrow. Either they were planning world dominance or they were solving an equation. Izuku and Ochako were huddled over some homework papers at the table, whispering back and forth about something that appeared to be an explosion of formulas and doodles. Kirishima was practically leaning out of his seat across the room, clutching his controller like it was his lifeline as he attempted to maintain his top spot in Mario Kart against a beaming Kaminari. Please let me win this one, man, Kaminari let out a moan. Bro, in your dreams, Kirishima retorted. Mineta was leafing through some highly dubious magazines off in the corner. Sonic's ears perked up, and he mentally noted to ask where Mineta stored those. The biggest surprise, though, was that Bakugo was cooking. Blinking, Sonic said, You cook? Without raising his head, Bakugo snarled, Say one more word and I'll turn this frying pan into your coffin. Sonic backed off casually before the kitchen turned into a battleground. Noted, he said. This school was already his favorite. Mornings were something Sonic detested. Although he was a big morning person, he was never bothered by the morning itself. In fact, He occasionally enjoyed watching the sunrise, but rather by the fact that his wonderful, deep sleep had to be broken. Sonic was accustomed to sleeping little. During his adventures against Eggman, they occasionally ran out of time for rest, going days at a time without even taking a 5-minute nap, but Sonic always persevered. When Sonic did fall asleep, however, it was nearly impossible to wake him until he had slept for 10 uninterrupted hours. Naturally, it took him some time to get out of bed when his alarm clock, the one the school had given him while he was getting ready for his dorm room, rang at 5:45 a.m. What the hell am I doing? I should never have asked Zuzu to train me. As he was quite the speedster, he set his alarm clock just 5 minutes before the actual training, believing he would have time to get ready and eat before their meet. The night before, he had actually followed Shoto's advice and asked Midoriya to help him develop his skills and powers, since they both seemed to have powers related to kinetic energy. Apparently, Izuku agreed and told him to meet him at the training grounds at around 5:50 a.m. However, he didn't anticipate that his wake would be so challenging. After arriving at the grounds at 5:53 a.m., he peered through his squinting eyes at Izuku, who was warming up under the bright ceiling lights. "Hey, Yan Zuzu, are you prepared? Hey Sonic, how are you? You look worn out. You are under no obligation to attend if you choose not to." "No, I'm fine. I simply, larger Yan, don't worry, I'll get used to it." "Sure, I'll share what I know with you. You appeared to have control over your quirk during our battle with Overhaul. Tell me how you activate it," Midoriya said, suddenly bringing out a notebook. It was quirk again, a word he would never get used to. "Well, I don't actually turn it on. You know, it's always on. My energy is constant and permeates every part of my body. I'm not sure if you understand. You mentioned that you wanted to shoot energy projectiles and other similar things, don't you?" "Well, Colorboy said that, not me." "Why yeah, well." Midoriya pondered for a long time, then it became clear. "I think you're my opposite in some way, what?" "Yes. I used to concentrate it on just one area of my body, like my legs or fingers, back when I didn't have much control over my quirk. However, when I did, it was always at 100%, so it was so powerful that it kept shattering my bones." He could give Knuckles a run for his money. Sonic gulped. "Having a power so powerful that your body can't handle it. However, I discovered how to disperse the power throughout my entire body, so that rather than being 100% in my legs, it is only 5% throughout my body. And you ought to do the exact opposite, in my opinion. So what you're saying is, instead of using my power into my whole body, I focus it into a single point, concentrate it and set it free, together," they said. "I could then launch projectiles and launch long-range attacks with that. You know you're a genius, Zuzu?" He put his hand behind his neck and said, "Well, I try." "All right, then let's give it a shot, all right. Perhaps start by concentrating on your inner energy. Feel it everywhere on your body, including your arms, legs, and chest." Sonic closed his eyes and felt it, this innate ability of his, which he had become so used to over time that he had never really paid much attention to. "You sense it? Yeah. All right. Let's see now. Oh, try shifting the energy from one location to another, such as from the tip of your right finger to your left arm." Since it was difficult and confusing to move the energy while standing still, Sonic extended his arms, fingers in the shape of a finger gun, taking his left arm, bringing it to his right, and then slowly extending it back out. This seemed like a repetitive, pointless movement, but it was actually helping Sonic feel and move his energy around. "All right, try focusing it now. Put everything at your fingertips, concentrate, and maintain it there." Sonic concentrated like never before, pointing his finger to the terrain's extremes and holding his position firmly to prevent the energy from flowing back into his entire body. "Go now." After Sonic released all the tension in his body, he noticed. He never knew he had that power, it was always so natural that he never paid any attention to it. Now, however, he realized the true potential of his speed. Heck, who knew what it would have been like with the Chaos Emeralds? Sonic always carried those 2 gems with him, not trying to let them fall into the wrong hands. Any hands, for that matter. Some sort of blue lightning shot out of his fingers with incredible force and collided with the ground far from him and Izuku. He was so exhausted that he could have fallen back to sleep on this uncomfortable ground, but as the energy left his body, he collapsed to the ground, exhausted and with hardly enough strength to stand, let alone move his arms. "Sonic, you succeeded. In fact, you succeeded. I believe that the reason you're so exhausted is because you've expended all of your energy on your body and haven't left any for yourself." "What? Was that?" But don't worry, we can continue our training if you'd like, and you'll be able to put forth a specific amount of energy as we proceed. That was incredible. Izuku squealed and began scrawling frantically in his hero notebook, noting Sonic's movements, energy beam, and other actions. He had already begun to think of ways to apply his newly acquired skill. After a few minutes of recuperating his vivid energy, Sonic and the other person engaged in a moderately intense sparring match. After a while, the morning sun shone into the eyes of Sonic and Izuku as they emerged from the changing rooms of the training grounds, their hair still wet from a brief shower. "Hi Zuzu, just wondering what time it is." Sonic covered his face from the burning sun and asked. Izuku hastily pulled his phone from his pockets, and his eyes widened in alarm as he looked at the screen. He stammered, Sonic, it's 8h20, just that." "That's okay, we're doing fine." At 8:25, classes began. Gulp, you are aware that class begins in 5 minutes. My goodness, it's already 4. Yes, I am aware. How about it? He answered casually. I don't have my school uniform with him. Before he knew it, he had been in front of his dorm room when Sonic grabbed his arm and ran wildly toward his dorm. He stumbled into his bedroom as soon as he realized what was happening, fumbling through drawers to find his usual school suit and small red tie. Sonic was fortunate not to have to change yet, as he had met with Principal Nezu a few days prior, who had told him that he would be taken in to take steps so that the school could order his future uniform. Sonic was a free spirit, built for freedom and movement, not for iron clamps hidden under the guise of 75% polyester button-ups and pants, so he had to enjoy his free body while it lasted. I'm ready, began Midoriya. Oh god, we only have a minute left, we're going to be late, and if Mr. Aizawa catches us he'll. Just stay strong, buddy. What are you? Izuku barely had time to think before Sonic seized the green hero by the arm once more and drove quickly across the campus, reaching the classroom in a matter of seconds. There should be 24 seconds left before we reach our seats. Must I also drag you there? And no, that'll be fine. Next time, bring your uniform with you after our morning training, it should save us some. Class, keep quiet. When Sonic saw Mr. Aizawa in a yellow sleeping bag, he had done his best to contain a big fat laugh, but he couldn't risk it, feeling the danger from his eyes so strong that even Bakugo seemed to quiet down. The entire room turned to face the source of the cold and stern voice. Please remember that our weekly physical exam is scheduled for this afternoon following dinner. Give it your all. Being outclassed by a new student, especially a blue hedgehog, would make me feel embarrassed. Hey, what is the intended meaning of that? You talk a lot of bullshit for a... Finish that sentence and the hospital will be your new home. My bad, teach. He'll just have to show them later. Sonic sank back into his chair and glanced around, noticing a few students stifling their laughter. Economics began the first period. Other than Kaminari and Bakugo, who were expelled for Kaminari's antics of throwing paper balls at Bakugo, who did not take this lightly, there was nothing noteworthy about this class. The remainder of the morning proceeded roughly as Sonic had anticipated, which wasn't really saying much. His eyelids drooped every few seconds, his pen swung languidly in his fingers, and by the time Aizawa called on him to solve a problem, Sonic's mind was nothing but blank space. He tried to sit still and pay attention in math class, but the numbers on the chalkboard might as well have been hieroglyphs. He scratched the back of his head and began, 42? Steel might have been reduced to ash by Aizawa's gaze. That wasn't even a question that needed a number. With an exaggerated shrug, Sonic sank into his seat as the room burst into muffled laughter. Hey, at least I'm consistent. Kaminari snickered so hard he almost got caught. Jiru even cracked the faintest smile before rolling her eyes, and Mina loved them. By third period, he had given up on pretending to understand and had instead amused himself by drawing little sketches of chili dogs in the margins of his notebook and passing them around like secret notes. Each class seemed to drag on forever, and Sonic was certain that he would break the sound barrier by simply running to the cafeteria when lunch finally arrived. The clock was moving more slowly than molasses. And he did just that when the bell rang. With trays in hand, students lined up to grab their meals, laughing and chatting as they did so. The cafeteria smelled delicious. Rice bowls, noodles, curry, you name it. Sonic, he appeared to have witnessed the end of the world as he stood motionless in front of the counter. You gotta be kidding me. Lunch Rush looked up from his steaming pots and said, what's wrong? Yeah, issue. The chili dogs are nowhere to be found. As if it had personally insulted him, Sonic gestured toward the glowing menu board and said, you have noodles, curry, whatever it is, but no chili dogs? With a slow blink, Lunch Rush adjusted his hat and said, "We don't serve those here." After a half-beat of silence, Sonic gave the loudest, most dramatic gasp anyone had ever heard in the cafeteria. "Not even chili dogs. This is a crisis," he said, clutching his chest as if he had just been stabbed in the heart. "What a tragedy. This timeline is the worst." Mina slapped the table, giggling. Kirishima almost spat out his drink, and even Todoroki turned slightly curious. Lunch Rush scowled. "We give young heroes healthy, well-balanced meals. They're not exactly hot dogs." "Equal." With a tray in hand and eyes blazing with mock rage, Sonic leapt up onto a chair and declared, "Chili dogs are the most balanced thing on the planet. Bun. Carbohydrates. Protein, like chili in the dogs. Cheese is a dairy product. If you're brave, try some jalapenos. It's almost like a salad." "He's actually convincing me." Kaminari whistled as the cafeteria burst into laughter. "I can't just," said Lunch Rush, massaging his temple. "Then let the public make the decision." Sonic raised his fist like a rally leader. Do you want chili dogs in this cafeteria, students?" "Yes." With a roar, half the cafeteria pounded on the tables. Sonic smiled smugly, hands on his hips as if he had just saved the world, while Lunch Rush sighed, already defeated. "Chef, it appears that you have been chili dogged. You'd better light the grill." Mina shouted, Sonic for first-year representative, while standing in her chair. As the room erupted in more laughter, Sonic leapt to the ground, already reveling in his victory. The first chili dog ever made at UA was served after Sonic hurriedly jumped over the food bar and into the kitchen, where he talked with Lunch Rush about the ingredients needed and portion sizes. The cooking took about 30 minutes. "Everyone, pay attention. The pinnacle of culinary art has been showcased to you and is now accessible in the cafeteria at UA High," Sonic began, presenting the chili dog. The lunch court erupted in enthusiasm and approval as everyone lined up once more to sample this fascinating hot dog. They placed their orders, took them, and then bit into them. And cherished it. Bakugo, sitting with his arms folded and his daggers glaring, was unable to fully muffle the chorus of "This is so good," resonating in the cafeteria. With a tray of chili dogs piled high, Sonic leaned smugly against the counter and said, "Face it, Lunch Rush, your menu just got a major upgrade." Lunch Rush sighed and nodded slightly, saying, "I can't deny results, but if these kids start skipping salad, I'm blaming you." "Hey, balance it out with a chili salad," Sonic said with a smile while throwing another chili dog into his mouth in a basketball show-off. "The issue has been resolved." With the exception of Bakugo, who at last slammed his tray so forcefully that the utensils rattled, laughter echoed through the tables as Sonic emerged from the kitchen to join his friends at their table. "TCH. As if anyone is interested in your stupid hot dogs. During the physical examination, I'll remove that smirk from your face." "Oh," Sonic smirked even more as he tilted his head, saying, "You're getting way too excited for our spar tomorrow. Sure, if you want to fight now, right here, however, honestly, are you certain you're prepared for such a significant humiliation in front of the entire cafeteria?" The loudspeaker buzzed above Bakugo before he could literally blow up. "Class 1A. Report to Ground Gamma for your weekly progressive quirk apprehension test." As students shuffled to their feet and trays were left behind, there was a mix of cheers and moans in the cafeteria. Kirishima gave Sonic a back pat, almost knocking him into his plate. "You've already energized Bakugo, dude. This test is going to be crazy." With giddy anticipation, Sonic brushed off his gloves and said, "Excellent, I enjoy being wild." With the debate about chili dogs still roiling in the background and the tension between Bakugo and Sonic brewing hotter than ever, the class poured out of the cafeteria. As Class 1A lined up in the sweltering afternoon sun, Aizawa unzipped his sleeping bag, rubbed his eyes, and delivered his usual deadpan briefing. "The standard physical examination, as I mentioned this morning. Repetitive side steps, grip strength, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, and ball throw. Keep tabs on your own development and don't let up. And you, Hedgehog, you just run fast," he said, turning to Sonic with the same long, weary gaze. "Don't think that's an excuse." Sonic grinned arrogantly. "Wouldn't dream of it, teach. 50 meters. With the timer drones hovering, Sonic and Iida stood at the line, while the rest of the class lined up to watch. "Sonic, you should know, my engines are built for speed," Iida said, adjusting his glasses. "Do not undervalue me." "Ready. Set. G. FWOOSH, Sonic skidded to a stop at the finish line in less than a second after the signal ended, blurring down the track while the timer beeped erratically, alternating between 0.05s, and error. After a moment of silent staring, Kaminari blew a low whistle. Dude, he broke the clock. Iida, who was still proud of his progress, swooped in all the joy that came with it. He finally made it to the line, panting, looking both amazed and frustrated. His time of 1:89 seconds was better than his first time at UA, which was 3.04 seconds. Nice engines, 4 eyes, said Sonic, leaning against the post and tapping his foot nonchalantly. I might be caught in the act, but never. I have a question for you, Sonic. How quickly did you actually go? Iida inquired in between breaths. Well, not much. It's probably a Mach 3 or something, he remarked casually. MMACH3. Basically, that is superhuman speed. Yes. My name is that. Strength of grip. The grip dynamometer came next. Kirishima, who always had a smile on his face, clamped down like a man who bench presses mountains. His death grip, which makes Sonic think of Knuckles whenever they shake hands, made the dial spin, the machine word, and it registered a high score. After that, Kirishima flexed with genuine pride, saying, I've been practicing grip since I was a child. This was his moment, he said, and the class cheered. The machine wasn't smoking, and the reading placed Sonic firmly behind Kirishima, Bakugo, and Midoriya, who had applied a vicious, controlled squeeze. Sonic shrugged. I guess I don't do steady grip. Very well. Sonic took a turn, his hand on the bar, and he squeezed casually, causing the dial to jump high enough to impress. Long jump while standing. One by one, Aizawa called them up, and Midoriya took his place, breathing steadily and humming. One for all, through his legs. He launched with technique, directing his kinetic flow into a precise, clean jump that landed far and true. Sonic had a lot more raw impulse with his naturally strong legs, which typically carried him well above the speed of sound, but Midoriya's form and landing were superior, and the score reflected that. Midoriya's mark was just ahead of Sonic's. Ochako gave him a silent thumbs up and a broad smile, while Sonic clapped sincere applause. Nice form, Zuzu. Midoriya's classmates murmured their approval. Repeated agility and sidesteps. With the timer blinking red, the cones were set up, and students took turns zigzagging through them one by one, with differing outcomes. The class leaned forward as Sonic took the stage, which was his specialty. Go, said Aizawa. Sonic was not only fast, but also playful, darting sideways, spinning through turns, even striking a pose mid-step without losing pace. The timer beeped, flashing numbers that made the rest of the class groan in disbelief. Sonic blurred instantly, weaving between the markers so quickly that his outline shimmered. To the students' eyes it looked like a multitude of Sonics at once. Yes, darling. That's how you sidestep, Sonic exclaimed, posing victorious as he skidded to a halt. With a whistle, Kirishima said, Dude, that wasn't even fair. Todoroki, who had just finished running, frowned slightly. Sonic's speed was unmatched here, but his score was good, better than most. Without raising his gaze, Aizawa wrote down something. As anticipated, agility is incredible. Bakugo growled while watching. TCH. Hedgehog, try beating me where it counts. Sonic grinned and said, Yes, Boom Boy. Just be careful not to stumble over your own mindset along the way. Throwing a ball, Aizawa gave Sonic a softball and said, Don't run with it. Do whatever you want with your quirk. Sonic considered using the energy that Izuku had believed he could use this morning, but he was still uneasy with the sensation and didn't want to pass out from exhaustion when there were more tests to come, so he resorted to his go-to tactic, the spin dash, in which Sonic rolled into a ball of spikes and spun quickly on himself. After a few seconds, he quickly unfolded and, using the momentum his body had gained from spinning so much, he timed the throw perfectly and yanked it off to great distances. Although Bakugo and Midoriya had won this challenge, he was impressed by his own inventiveness. Sonic was perplexed by Uraraka's effortless throwing technique, which made it appear as though the object was floating away and drifting off into space, until she swiftly humbled him by scoring infinity to some extent. Perhaps that's her peculiarity, he thought. Mr. Aizawa had called and said, All right, class, come see your results. What? It's over. Perhaps I ought to have tried that move, man. What do you do, roadkill? What do you mean by holding back? Avoid holding me back. Abruptly, Bakugo took Sonic by the arm and pulled him toward their teacher. You. Get him to throw the ball again. I will not tolerate him holding back. Sonic, did you really hold back? Well, sort of. I simply didn't want to exhaust myself when I believed there would be more tests soon. Grab a ball. Wah. Grab a ball and don't hold back this time. Sonic swallowed as he reached into the bucket Aizawa had brought for another one of those softballs, concentrating and directing the energy into his arm as he and Izuku had done just this morning. When he snapped his wrist, the ball turned into a comet and streaked off into the distance. The measuring device desperately tried to record, but it was exhausted instantly. The board flashed ridiculous numbers, a number that the equipment couldn't handle, and the judges marked it as out of calibration. The audience cheered, and Sonic smiled before he fell to the ground with his chest puffed, but the official score was carefully left blank until they could fix the sensor. Sonic's throw had been unfathomable raw power, but Bakugo's was explosive precision that the school could record and rank. Bakugo stepped up next for his rematch against Sonic, as if he had something to prove. He didn't need a showy lightning streak. Instead, he focused and used a focused explosion to drive the ball with surgical accuracy. The recorder clicked and gave a huge, legitimate readout. Bakugo's official result placed him at the top, right behind Uraraka with her infinity, because Sonic's results were impossible to measure, and he made sure everyone knew it, grinning as if he had swallowed a sun. Wrapped in the same monotone, Aizawa collected the results. Sonic, outstanding raw output and top-end speed. Ball throw. Raw force was higher than allowed by the meter. Control, stamina, and accuracy under repeated stress or weaknesses. Others. Midoriya and Iida. Good technique and form. Bakugo. Power and explosive control. Grip, Kirishima. Todoroki, reliability. With his arms folded and his smile slightly fading, Sonic said, "So I'm a muscle car without a steering wheel. I understand." With an angry and possibly respectful expression on his face, Bakugo approached him and said, "You were lucky with the dash. Don't act as though you're superior to me." Sonic chuckled and gave Bakugo a slight shoulder clap to make him angry. "Boom boy, I couldn't have imagined it. However, try not to make explosions appear so uninteresting the next time." With his notebook out, Midoriya hovered close, examining Sonic's fatigue and the way the energy disintegrated following the fingertip blast. "Sonic, that's the same shot you did this morning. You nearly passed out," Midoriya said. "Your output quickly depletes your power. You become 10 times more useful if you learn regulation." For once, Sonic was silent for a moment as he turned to face Izuku. "Yeah, I know. Do not be concerned. We will continue our training." "You'll learn," said Aizawa, folding his arms. "I don't want to be in charge or die from overdoing it. The school is out." He strode off, leaving a trail of complaints and conversation behind. "Clean up." Kirishima gave Sonic a backslap and said, "Dude, you're crazy. In the best possible way. I mean that." Mina threw a snack tube at his head, Kaminari gave him a high five, and Ochako waved from a distance with a gentle, proud smile. Bakugo's scowl persisted. The rivalry was more intense, but it wasn't a one-sided humiliation. Sonic had to earn the respect that now subtly permeated the classroom. He had won things, to be sure, spectacularly, but he hadn't snubbed everyone. Sonic came to the realization that he would never be the best in a world like this, with superpowered people and highly advanced technology, so perhaps he should prepare and actually recover before embarking on his emerald rampage around the globe. Who knows what kinds of villains he might encounter. He was far from finished, and that fact felt far more interesting than sweeping everything in his path. He still had dinner, dorm antics, and whatever mischief Kaminari or Mina would drag him into tonight, so he let the noise pass. The class trudged back to Heights Alliance, exhausted from the tests of the day, and as they dispersed to their usual corners, some flopped on couches, others retreated upstairs, and a few stayed behind to snack and gossip. Shoes kicked off, bags dropped, and conversation filled the common room. However, Sonic was not present. By the time Sonic padded down the silent hallway, his shoes barely making a sound against the polished floor, the sun had already set. He had asked Aizawa where Eri was, as Ha had been told following the raid that she would be watched over by Mirio and school staff. After receiving a stern nod and instructions, he found himself outside a plain room with a paper charm taped to the doorframe. Eri was sitting cross-legged on the bed, tinkering with a ribbon in her hair, her eyes downcast and her face distant, as seen through the window. Sonic leaned against the doorframe and knocked softly. "Hey, my dear, did you miss me?" A slight smile tugged at her lips as her head snapped up. "Sonic." With his hands behind his head in his typical easy position, he stepped in. "How are things going for you? Is the room service satisfactory? Are beds comfortable?" Eri cocked her head and said, "It's all right. Everyone is friendly. However, it's silent. Silent, huh? Well, quiet isn't always a bad thing, Sonic said, settling into the chair next to her bed and spinning halfway before balancing on its back legs. But too much of it, that may become isolating. Eri nodded and hugged her knees, and Sonic watched her for a moment before taking out a small object from his quills. A bright red yo-yo that he had Momo make for him. I already picked this up. I thought you might enjoy it, much more enjoyable than gazing at the wall. As he gave it to her, her eyes brightened, and she fumbled with the string, initially clumsy, but Sonic helped her. Like this. Pull after flicking your wrist and letting it fall. Simple, simple. Eri grinned as the yo-yo swung back and forth, shaky but functional. There you have it. Told y'all you'd get the hang of it, Sonic smiled. It simply requires some practice. I guess it's like relearning how to smile. Eri gave him a gentle glance and said, thank you for coming. With a soft thumbs up, Sonic got up and said, hey, anytime. Remind yourself that you are not alone. You got me, you got Deku, and you got the others. I will stop by whenever I can to prevent you from becoming overly bored. If you'd like, you can even visit the dorms. Eri's tiny voice yelled as he made his way to the door. You swear? After pausing, Sonic grinned and said, cross my heart. I never break my word. In relation to that, I will come get you tomorrow. Do you recall what I said in that lab? And no. It will then be unexpected. His smile lasted longer than usual, but he walked out of her room with his normal gait. Sonic found himself facing Aizawa once more after crossing the door and returning to the hallway. Sonic, we have something to talk about. What is it? How awesome am I? Or perhaps you were still astounded by my results. No, well, all right. Then what's happening? Murio, a third-year student, usually watches over Eri, but lately, he appeared to be lagging behind in his studies. Now, you're the first person I found, but I would have preferred to ask Midoriya if he could watch over her. Is it possible for you to care for her and still be able to keep up in training and classes? You and Midoriya will be able to divide responsibilities. Teach, of course. What's not to trust? I'm quick, entertaining, and the kid adores me. All right. You can come drop her off at the infirmary before school starts. You are in charge of her on the weekends and at the conclusion of classes. Additionally, she appears much more composed and reliable in your presence, so feel free to engage in occasional quirk training with her. Do I express myself clearly? Teach, as obvious as day. All right. You will begin to supervise her next week. Until then, don't play around. No one needed to know the serious conversation he had just had. For the time being, he was back with his friends, prepared for whatever mayhem they were up to. A few minutes later, the quiet hallways gave way to the boisterous warmth of Heights Alliance. Sonic kicked the door open with a smile, his typical energy back in full force. Mina appeared with a sly smile on her face as Sonic leaned against a sofa's armrest, twirling an apple between his hands like a stress ball. She prodded his arm and teased, after that second ball throw, you looked like you were about to keel over. Please, PFFT. I took Bakugo's victory for granted. In response, Sonic smirked and twirled the apple before chomping it whole, core and all. Builds character. Speaking of character. Have you ever noticed how those two are practically married already but won't admit it? Mina folded her arms and cocked her head toward where Izuku and Ochako were chatting by the vending machine. Sonic narrowed his eyes and pricked his ears. Oh ho. You're talking about Gravity Girl and Green Beans. Good luck. They have no hope, Mina said, snapping her fingers. Why don't we arrange them? For example, on a date? Sonic lowered his voice and leaned closer, asking, what are you thinking? Dinner in the cafeteria by candlelight? A fictitious crisis that forces them to spend time alone? Nah, too obvious, Mina echoed in a whisper, small first. Press them together. Group tasks, nudging, and traditional wingman maneuvers. Chemistry, she said, miming an explosion with her hands. With his arms crossed, Sonic laughed and said, I like it. A secret op. I'm terrible at everything. Timing, accuracy, and stealth. Mina tapped her nose and remarked, that's why you've got me. Izuku looked like he was one stutter away from exploding, and Uraraka, who was on the other side of the room, blushed as she laughed at something he said. Mina received a thumbs up from Sonic. Yes, they're ruined. Let's get it done. Mina held up her hand. Co-conspirators? Sonic agreed, slapping her palm. Partners in crime, he said. Excellent. Don't be late. My room is at 7:30 p.m. I'm never late. As the rest of the dorm buzzed around them, blissfully oblivious to the new, chaotic mission that had just been launched within Class 1A, The two of them smiled, already plotting. When the common room gradually became empty, with only a few students left, Mina took Sonic by the wrist and threw him upstairs later that evening. Come on, War Council, Hedgehog. My chamber, now. War Council? Raising an eyebrow but still following, Sonic said, I like the sound of that. With neon posters, glow-in-the-dark stars, and stacks of magazines, Mina's room appeared to have exploded like a disco. Sonic noticed Kaminari, Momo, and Jiro seated on Mina's bed. Kaminari, Jiro and Momo. Why are you in this place? I never considered you all to be romantics, Sonic chirped, grinning. You would be taken aback. I'm the romantic king. That's what I do best. Who misled you? Jiro retaliated sharply. Silence. After yelling, Mina slammed a notebook onto the desk, grabbed some markers, and wrote the following across the top. The Gravity Crush Operation. With a laugh, Sonic exclaimed. That's the name. It's not bad at all, Pinky. This is serious business, so keep quiet. Step 1. Isolate the targets, Mina said, already drawing stick figures of Izuku and Ochako holding hands and encircling them with a huge heart. Aims? You're making this sound like a Black Ops mission, Momo said again. It is. We have to design scenarios in which it's just them, Mina stated wildly. Because Midoriya overthinks everything and Uraraka is too shy, group activities won't work. Sonic pointed to the doodles while leaning on the desk and said, all right, all right. What about partners for training? We can attempt to isolate them during sparring drills when we train in pairs. Yes, but know they've worked together before, so it comes naturally to them. Additionally, Mina wrote in her notebook, let's try something different. Shared hobbies. Midoriya would be too preoccupied with the task to care about her. It feels natural if they spend time together outside of training. With a snap of his fingers, Kaminari said, movies, everyone, with the exception of those two, mysteriously cancels at the last minute when we propose a class movie night. Instant date, boom. Mina slammed her marker down and squealed, yes, excellent. Step 2. We need to get one of them to come clean, she said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Something personal doesn't have to be love, increases intimacy. Like truth or dare, Jiro smirked and continued, adding. With a villainous smile, Mina said, you're a natural. As they looked at their jumbled chart of doodles, arrows, and half-baked plans, the group gave each other high fives. Operation Gravity Crush is a go, Mina said. Yeah, said Sonic with a beaming smile, Green Bean and Gravity Girl won't know what hit him because tomorrow is a day off. Tomorrow? Tonight, we can accomplish that, Momo added, we simply must begin with the truth or dare instead. Don't worry, I can handle this. Mina uttered with her fingers tapping frantically on the screen. She pulled out her phone and glanced up at her allies. At the same moment, all of the comrades in question, aside from Sonic, who doesn't have a phone, heard a buzz in their pockets and opened the message, which was from Mina in the Class 1A group chat and said, game night in 5 minutes, meet at the common room. After dinner, the Heights Alliance common room was a hive of activity, with laughter erupting from beanbags and couches, bags of chips and soda cans scattered on the coffee table, and half-completed homework left for the evening. Mina jumped up and down on the couch as if she were hosting a game show. Welcome to the inaugural Class 1A Truth or Dare night, ladies and gentlemen. Kaminari almost choked on his soda after whooping, yes, at last, some action. Kirishima pumped her fist. Dude. Iida instantly repositioned his glasses. Hold on a second. This kind of behavior could result in risky challenges, improper inquiries. This is just for fun, Mina said, smiling and waving him away. Oh, relax, Iida. Bonding time that is completely safe and healthy. Sonic smirked as he muttered, sure, adding, and I'm the slowest guy in the room. Mina gave him a quick glance before whispering, are you ready? Sonic's smile expanded as he cocked his head in the direction of Deku and Uraraka, who were seated on the floor next to one another, awkwardly avoiding eye contact. Oh yeah. I'm in. Mina straightened, perfect. Mina stood up straight, grabbing everyone's attention with a clap of her hands. She paused dramatically and pointed to Kaminari, saying, okay, the rules are simple. No skipping turns, no lame dares like, drink water, and if you chicken out, you get a doodle on your face, courtesy of Jiru's marker. Hold on, what? Jiru smirked and twirled a black marker between her fingers as Kaminari yelled. They all sat in a circle around the table and laughed. Sonic stretched out and sat down next to Kaminari, leaning back and balancing on 2 chair legs, his eyes already darting to Ochako and Izuku, who were sitting shoulder to shoulder, but the distance between them appeared to be as wide as a canyon. Mina spun an empty soda bottle in the middle of the circle and said, "Okay, first victim." It clicked to a stop and pointed directly at Sonic. Mina purred mischievously, well, Mr. Fastest Thing Alive, truth or dare?" Pretending to think, Sonic tapped his chin and said, Dare. The truth is dull." "Excellent. I dare you to switch spots with someone across the circle," Mina said, snapping her fingers. "PFF'd. Is that all? Weak dare. I swap out for Sato." In an instant, Sonic sped across the circle and, without missing a beat, landed directly beside Ochako, who had previously occupied Sato's seat. Innocently, he leaned back and grinned smugly, saying, "Oops, guess this seat was calling my name." As Sonic's shoulder pushed her closer to Izuku and eventually, bringing the two a little closer, Ochako blinked, his cheeks flushed pink. Deku stumbled something incomprehensible and scratched his cheek, while Mina's smile expanded like a cat setting a trap. "All right, I've finished my turn. Who will come next?" Sonic, who was already spinning the bottle, inquired. Kaminari puffed out his chest as it fell on him. Go ahead and do it." Throughout the game, Sonic maintained a low-key but calculated level of involvement, either by posing dares that would inevitably draw Ochako and Izuku closer or by deftly posing truth questions that revealed emotions without overtly outing anyone. When it is Yaoyorozu's turn, she spins the bottle, but after a few seconds, it points in Uraraka's direction. "Uraraka, dare or truth?" "Well, truth." Mina's eyes sparkled as she leaned forward. "Who is your favorite member of Class 1A? Ochako's face turned red, her hands twisted in her lap as she opened her mouth to stammer, and the circle instantly fell silent as everyone's eyes snapped to her. She didn't raise her voice, but Asui's calm firmness caused everyone to pause. "Ribbit." She looked at Mina, unimpressed, and said, "That's not a fair question. Uraraka is being cornered by you." Mina pretended to be innocent as she blinked. "What? Oh, I was just wondering." The weight behind it caused Mina to look away and click her tongue, but Asui's tone remained the same. "Cut it out. Truth or dare isn't supposed to be a trap." The game wasn't over, but it was getting more interesting. Sonic caught Mina's eye from across the circle and smirked knowingly, while Deku fumbled for his soda can without making eye contact and Ochako let out the smallest breath of relief, cheeks still pink. As time went on, the students gradually made their way to their dorm rooms, fatigue enveloping them like a blanket. Mina glanced up the stairs and gave Sonic a sly nod, plans for the next day already simmering in her brain. After a while, the common room became quiet, with only the faint hum of the city outside the windows remaining. Sonic stood up, stretched, and went upstairs, opening the door to his room but focusing on the window rather than the bed. It didn't feel right to sleep inside tonight, so he hesitated. Leaning back on the tiles with his hands folded behind his head, Sonic let his eyes wander up to the stars as he slipped the window open, climbed out, and vaulted onto the roof with practiced ease, the night air hitting him instantly, cool and calm, carrying the faint sense of grass and the distant city. No matter how hectic life got, he always made time for this. It was a silent moment, just him and the sky. He had been to space before, standing closer to those stars than most people could have ever imagined, but it always felt different to look at them from down here. It was more human, or hedgehog, really. His chest grew constricted. His eyes softened as he whispered to himself, "Man, I miss home so much." The thought went deeper than he had anticipated. He imagined Tails, constantly fiddling with some device, smiling anxiously whenever Sonic made fun of him. Knuckles, complaining but unwaveringly loyal. Amy, swinging her hammer around and never giving up. And even Eggman, with all his schemes and absurd machines. He had no idea what the rules were or what the future held, and although these new faces, bright, hopeful kids, were beginning to feel like friends, things weren't the same. Did they even realize I was gone, and are they coping well without me? The thought made his jaw tighten, but it relaxed as he sighed slowly. Guess worrying won't help. He forced a tiny smile that fell short of his eyes. "It's better not to oversleep," he whispered, his voice softer and almost gentler this time. "Tomorrow is a big day." The stars above appeared to be silently listening. The Saturday morning was lovely. The UA was one of the few Japanese schools that offered weekend breaks, so the quiet respite was much needed. Sonic woke up from his rooftop sleep to the sound of birds chirping and the warmth of the sun on his blue fur. He sat up quickly and stretched. "Yawn, oh man, talk about quality sleep," he muttered. He got up, shook his legs and arms to loosen them up, and then, in typical Sonic fashion, leapt straight off the roof. Humming, he landed lightly on the balcony outside his dorm room and slipped inside. He took a quick shower and, for one of the few times he'd bothered to forego his signature shoes, padded across the floor in socks and slippers. He found himself reflecting on how different mornings were here as he headed for the kitchen. No Tails tinkering in the adjacent room, no Eggman schemes, no constant running. Simply be silent. For a brief moment, he truly missed the mayhem and wondered how everyone was doing back home. This is the sensation of slowing down. His stomach rumbling for breakfast, he zipped toward the kitchen in a blur after having that thought. By the time Sonic arrived, the kitchen was already bustling. There were a few students strewn about, some eating, some conversing, some still half asleep. Mineta almost spilled his cereal as Sonic zipped past her and skidded to a stop at the counter. Kirishima said, "Morning, Sonic," grinning as usual. "Sleep okay?" Sonic said, "Like a log," and picked up a plate. "Roof makes a great mattress, if you ignore the bugs." Kaminari mumbled, "Man, you're weird," while eating toast. Sonic piled food on his plate as if he hadn't eaten in days and shrugged. Whatever was available, he piled it high, including toast, rice, and eggs. He was already somewhat of a legend in Class 1A after protesting chili dogs in the cafeteria. Sonic sat down at the table and immediately started eating, consuming the food in record time. Some of the pupils looked on in wonder, or fear. With wide eyes, Shoji whispered, "Does he even chew?" "Guess that's what happens when you're built for speed," Zero said. Mid-bite, Sonic glanced up and smiled. "Hey, fuel's fuel. Gotta keep the engine running." The room echoed with laughter, and the morning descended into casual conversation. However, it still felt, to Sonic, quieter than it ought to have. No Amy trying to fuss over him, no Knuckles complaining about food, and no Tails to joke with. It's not the same without them, he realized as he looked at the plate and turned the fork idly over. With a sly smile, he dismissed the idea and reclined in his chair. "All right, what's on the agenda today? Gotta be something exciting. Don't tell me it's all books and homework." "Actually it is, but it shouldn't take too long. What do you have for today?" replied Kirishima. "Oh, nothing much, a little training with Zuzu, a jog around the city and a big spar with a guy whose ego is bigger than his mouth." "Ooh, you're fighting Bakugo today, right? I forgot he challenged you. I gotta watch that," said Kaminari. "Hey, that's a typical Saturday in my opinion, but sure, you can come along." After finishing his 4 toasts, 7 pancakes, and 6 eggs, he hurried to the training grounds. He was walking through the hallways when he noticed Uraraka, who appeared to be just waking up. She was still wearing a plain white shirt and some pink pajama pants with a bunch of hearts on them. "Yo, Coco. Are you okay? You don't look so well rested. Did you even sleep?" "Huh? Oh, yeah. No, I'm fine. I guess I studied too late last night." "Ya no, you gotta take care of yourself. Take some time off, go out with friends or something." Then a thought suddenly occurred to him. "Yeah, I'd really like to, but I gotta finish this homework from last week." "You weren't there yet so you wouldn't know," she replied. He said, "Well," with the most cunning and malevolent grin. "I heard Deku was having problems with his homework too. Maybe you two could help each other out. Somewhere nice and quiet. How about you two go to a coffee shop and study together?" "Wah. Well, great, I'll tell Zuzu about this. Go ahead and get ready. He'll meet at the front gate of school at about 11:30. Ciao." Before she could even process what he had said, he had already left, going to Midoriya's room. A recognizable blue blur screamed to a stop in front of Midoriya, who had just left his room with his notebook. "Yo, Zuzu," Sonic smiled while crossing his arms. "Busy this morning?" Well, I was going to talk to you about how you could use the technique we tested yesterday for different situatio." Yeah, never mind training today, you're going out." Already tense, Midoriya blinked. "Oh, out? What do you mean, out? Like training?" "Nope. Like a study coffee date, with Uraraka." Midoriya's face flushed so quickly that it nearly matched Kirishima's hair. What? "Sonic, I can't just." Sonic touched his lips with a finger. "Shush. Don't think, just roll with it. She's been overworking herself, you've been stressing out, and honestly, you two need this." He laughed and leaned in. "Besides, if you don't go, I'll tell the whole class how you muttered about her during dinner 2 days ago." Midoriya almost let his notebook fall. You heard that?" Sonic winked, saying, "Every word, pal." Now, be ready at 11:30 sharp. Wear something casual but not too casual, you're welcome. Sonic was gone in a flash of blue, laughing down the hall before Midoriya could stutter out another word. He finally came to a halt in a specific room. The door did not open despite his repeated knocks. Yo, Mina, you in there? Wait a minute. She was still in her pajamas and had her toothbrush in her mouth when she opened the door a few seconds later. Sonic, what are you doing here? It's barely morning. It's 10 o'clock, Mina. You should have been up since long enough. Yeah, but it's Saturday, who cares? What do you want anyway? It's about them. Them? Who's the, ooh, so you want to continue Operation Gravity Crush? Let's make it hap. Already did. Wah. How did you? Set them up on a chill coffee date. Simple enough. But, I told Coco Deku could help her with her homework, and I told Deku that she wanted to study with her. They're studying together at a coffee shop. I know, I'm amazing, brilliant, charismatic. Should I keep going for you? Maybe you'd want to look behind you. When he turned around, he saw Bakugo charging in his direction, either excited or furious. You, roadkill. It's almost time for our match. I'm gonna bomb your ass so hard you'll. Whoa, chill man. Don't you think it's too early in the morning to be screaming like that? Plus, I have something to do first. Let's do this later, in the afternoon, okay Buster? Plus, Aizawa wouldn't be so happy to see that you've destroyed the dorm, now would he? Bakugo stomped forward, his palms already crackling with tiny explosions. Don't tell me what to do, you blue rat, I've been waiting all week for this. Unfazed, Sonic simply leaned against Mina's doorframe with his arms folded. Sheesh, you need decaf. How about we make it fair and square? Training grounds, later today. That way, the whole class gets a front row seat. Bakugo gritted his teeth and growled, but he didn't immediately blow him up. He jabbed a finger an inch from Sonic's nose and then roared off, leaving a trail of sparks in his wake. Fine. But when I'm done, there won't be anything left of you but fur and ash, he said. Sonic grinned. Man, he's wound tighter than Shadow on a bad day. With wide eyes, Mina eventually removed the toothbrush from her mouth. You know he's probably plotting 15 different ways to murder you before lunch, right? Sonic stretched nonchalantly and started to leave, saying, hey, let him try. I like a challenge. See y'all later. Matchmaker Jr. Don't forget to keep tabs on the lovebirds for me. Half impressed, half incredulous, Mina shook her head. He's either the bravest guy I've ever met, or the dumbest. Sonic sped through the school's hallways until he arrived at the infirmary, Aries' room. Not wanting to startle her, he knocked softly. Aerie clutched her small stuffed bunny as she peered out the door after a few seconds had passed. Saying, morning, kiddo, he smiled. How'd you sleep? She rubbed her eyes and whispered, better. Good to hear. You up for that run today? Run? What run? The promise I made you back when we were stuck in that lab. You'll be feeling the wind and the freedom, remember? Her expression slightly brightened. I'll try to keep up. Sonic smirked and lowered himself to her level, saying, keep up? PFF'd. Didn't I tell you? You're not running with me, you're riding shotgun. I'll do the running, you just hang on. That made her smile a little. She appeared slightly more assured than before as he gave her the thumbs up before leaving, saying, awesome. Get dressed, grab some water, and I'll meet you in the lobby in 10. Aerie was waiting in the lobby with her backpack slung over her shoulder 10 minutes later. Sonic grinned and tapped his chest as he knelt before her. All right. Ready to roll? She looked at his spiky back and hesitated. I can't really hold on there. Sonic laughed. He swept her into his arms as if it were nothing, saying, who said anything about my back? Oh wait, I did. This way you won't get poked. Her eyes softened after widening. Oh. Comfy. Yeah. Perfect. Hold on tight, kiddo. The world suddenly became hazy as Sonic bounded forward while holding her firmly in his arms. With the morning sun already warm on their backs, Sonic held Aerie tightly as he zipped out of UA. She tightened her grip on his shirt in response to the unexpected gust of wind, but he merely smiled. Don't worry, kiddo. You're with me, just look around. Like a living painting, the city spread out in front of them. As the streak of blue darted past, neon signs flickered, rooftops gleamed, and crowds turned in surprise. Aerie's head turned left and right in awe as her wide red eyes attempted to take it all in at once. The smell of warm bread and sweet red bean fillings spilled into the street as Sonic slowed to a fast jog as they passed a small bakery. Aerie's nose twitched as she instinctively sniffed. Pretty nice, huh? smirked Sonic the Question. She muttered, "It smells good." "That's called breakfast," he explained with a laugh. "We'll grab you one of those sometime." He veered into a park and took a quieter route. The trail was bordered by trees, with patches of light shining through the branches. Above them, the wind stirred the leaves, causing them to shimmer like tiny green sparks. His passing startled the birds, which dispersed into the air. Aries' hold on him loosened just a bit as she looked up at the sky. "It's really pretty." Sonic's smile grew softer. "Told ya. The world's got a lot more to it than what you've seen, even though it's also my first time seeing all of this." He accelerated once more, racing across the park and onto the riverbank trail. Like a sheet of glass, the water glinted in the sunlight. He decelerated, allowing the wind to carry the river's aroma to them. A group of children were laughing as they skipped stones. With an expression that hovered between curiosity and longing, Aerie turned her head in the direction of the sound. Sonic was aware, but she chose to keep running to make sure she saw everything without saying anything. The city suddenly swam out below them as they zipped up a hill. Tiny dots of cars and buses scuttled along the streets, and towers and rooftops peppered the horizon. Aerie let out a gasp. "It's so big. Bigger than you think," Sonic remarked, lowering herself to improve her vision. "And every corner's got something new." Her tiny hand clenched in his fur, but this time it was in wonder rather than fear. Sonic smiled teasingly at her. "Hang on tight." He bounded forward once more, jumping from one rooftop to another. After squeaking, Aerie made a sound that startled even herself. A half laugh, half gasp. The world beneath them dissolved into swatches of color as the city wind whipped through her hair. Sonic eventually slowed down close to the city's edge. Noise dissipated into endless peaceful fields with flowers swaying in the breeze. Gently, he placed her down and allowed her to sway to her feet. With her eyes fixed on the horizon, Aerie held her bunny close to her chest. I didn't know it could feel like this," she said in a lithe, tremulous whisper. Sonic let go of her as she knelt beside her and lightly tapped her nose. "That's just the start, kiddo. Stick with me, and I'll show you everything you've been missing." Aerie smiled without hesitation for the first time in a long time. It was a tiny, innocent smile, but it was full of joy, something she had never experienced before. She began to wander the field while giggling and leaping with delight. Sonic smiled so broadly that he started crying. He was a proud father. But then little Aerie noticed something in a bush. She walked slowly over to the aforementioned bush and examined the fascinating item. "Mr. Sonic, what's that?" "What's what, Aerie?" He drove directly alongside her, and his heart stopped when his gaze fell upon the seemingly intriguing object. It had two big shapes that resembled golden donuts. For Sonic, what was unclear to Aerie was the most obvious. Rings, two rings of inhibitors, and the only person he knew with those. What on earth are those? Is he present? How did either of us end up here? Furthermore, he hardly ever removes his inhibitors. That implies there must have been a significant event. "Mr. S. Sonic, I'm getting scared." No, don't worry, little buddy. It's nothing. It belongs to a friend of mine. I'll take them for him." Snatching up the rings, he stuffed them into his quills. Perhaps he was no longer so alone. He left Aerie in her bed when they returned to the infirmary. "So little buddy, you had fun?" "Yes, it was so cool, we were going so fast, and then the park was so pretty, and the bird were so cute, and. Sonic was in complete ecstasy, but she continued to babble. He had even more motivation to be a hero when he realized that he could make a child who had endured pain her entire life happy. He put his life in danger for others all the time. He occasionally asked himself why. For what reason did he do this? Why take a chance on death? Why not live life to the fullest and stay safe? This was his motivation. "Mr. Sonic, are you crying?" "Wah. What? And no, it's the chili dog I ate earlier, it was too spicy," he was lying. "Oh, okay." Being smaller than Sonic, she rushed over to him and put her arms tightly around his legs. "Thank you, Sonic. You're the best." He was at his breaking point. He let the tears fall and said, "Okay, I lied, I am crying, but it's good crying, Aerie. You seem to bring her a lot of joy. Keep going, Sonic. This is what a true hero lives for." Sonic glanced at Aizawa, who was leaning against the doorframe. "You saw that? Me crying?" "Yes, but it's cute." "Oh, I knew you were a big softie, Teach, I never said I wasn't. But you sure act like it. That's not what I came to talk to you about. Bakugo told me to get you and asked me to supervise your spar." "Oh right, I forgot about him, though I would rather for you two to go all out. I cannot allow that. So go about, 90%. Don't kill each other. If you or him are injured, it shall be your responsibilities, and you will not be excused from class or homework. Is that clear? Yes, Teach. Now go. He's waiting for you at Gym Gamma. 'Bout time I get some action. I'll see you soon, okay, Eri? Okay. Bye, Mr. Sonic, she said, dismissively waving. Sonic's face hardened as soon as he stepped through the door. Time to get serious. As he ran to the Gym Gamma, he saw Bakugo stretching and warming up, and the majority of his classmates, aside from Izuku and Ochako, on the sidelines. Took you long enough, Ratface. Now I'll put you 6 feet under. Bakugo was silenced when Aizawa chirped, "There will be no killing in my class." After jumping onto the stage and warming up for a few minutes, Sonic assumed a battle stance. Okay. Here are the rules. No killing or any fatal injuries. If you're unable to move or get knocked off of the stage, you lose. You can always forfeit at any time. That's all, Aizawa said with his trademark stern tone. The two rivals gazed down at one another. The unadulterated anger in Katsuki's eyes and the assurance in Sonic's. Start the battle. Bakugo wasted no time at all. Explosions crackled off his palms as he closed the gap, zigzagging forward. Sonic waited for the right time, bracing himself. Sonic spun around as soon as Bakugo came within range, clipping him with a clean blow before delivering a scathing sidekick to the ribs. With a grunt, Bakugo took advantage of the situation and grabbed Sonic's leg. He spun and threw the Hedgehog across the arena with a roar, enhancing the throw with flaring explosions. After tumbling, Sonic twisted in midair and skidded back to his feet. Bakugo was already in his face, palm igniting, so there was no time to catch his breath. Heat brushed past Sonic's quills as he ducked just before the blast exploded. He retaliated with a low sweeping kick to knock him off balance, followed by a quick jab to the jaw and another to the gut. Bakugo stumbled, but both of his hands flared before Sonic could push any harder. Sonic realized there was danger and took a step back. As I said, Sonic waved a finger in a sly smile. All bark, no. AP shots. He was interrupted by the volley. Like shrapnel, tiny explosions dotted the air. Sonic dodged and ducked as he zipped left and right, but the unpredictable spread made him take quick burns along his arms. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself through and rushed in once more. Anticipating it, Bakugo leapt to a great height and blasted an explosion directly into Sonic's head. Sonic fell hard to the ground as the blow cracked against him. Another palm was inches away as he turned over. Sonic was unable to dodge this time. The blast exploded against his chest, sending him flying backward in a cloud of sparks and smoke. GHHN, Sonic coughed and stumbled to his feet, his fur burning. Okay. Ow. Definitely more punch than Eggman's toys. Bakugo landed with a savage grin on his lips and smoke rising from his palms. Told you, Hedgehog. You can't keep dodging forever. I'll blast you to pieces if I have to. Sonic's smile never dimmed as he shook the sting off his arm. That's so. Funny thing about speed, it's not just about running away. He moved quickly, pausing just inches from Katsuki's face. The blonde boy exploded at him when he saw this window. An afterimage, however, seemed to phase him right through. What the? Looking for someone? Sonic was waving his finger when he looked over his shoulder. NGH, I'll kill you. Again, phased through thin air. Taking advantage of Katsuki's confusion, Sonic hit him from several angles in a quick burst, including a backhand to his temple, a spin kick to his back, and a left hook to his side. Bakugo was unable to get away from him, so he blocked by crossing his arms, but Sonic was always flying around and hitting everything. The Hedgehog applied more pressure, kicking him squarely in the chest before spinning into him and knocking him back a few yards. Bakugo screamed, "Damn you!" as he shot skyward, a flaming vortex of explosions swirling around him. The pressure caused the arena to tremble. Sonic's gaze grew strained. He's winding up for something big. Howitzer. Bakugo spiraled downward like a human warhead, leaving a trail of smoke and fire behind. Concernedly, Kirishima said, "Mr. Aizawa, aren't you supposed to stop them if it goes too far? They're going to kill each other." With her eyes fixed on the fight, Aizawa remained silent. Impact. The arena floor was torn apart when the howitzer impact exploded with a thunderous roar. Everything was engulfed by smoke, and debris fell in large pieces. Bakugo stood in the crater with his arms still smoking and his chest heaving. A savage smile appeared on his face. "That's right, you're finished." However, then, silence was broken by a low hum. The smoke shifted, swirling strangely in one direction. The haze was split by a crack of sapphire light. Then another. Bakugo smiled, but it wavered. The hell? Radiant with unadulterated energy, Sonic emerged, his whole body trembling with movement. His quills oozed arcs of blue light, and the force of it caused the ground beneath him to shatter. Focus burned in his eyes. Sonic's voice distorted by speed. "Not bad, hothead," he said. "But you've had your fun. My turn." He disappeared. It was lightspeed this time, not just speed. Afterimages multiplied into a storm as blue streaks carved around Bakugo, causing the air to split with thunderclaps. Bakugo was unable to keep up as he spun in all directions, explosions flaring in panic. Then the blows struck. In a split second, dozens of strikes. Each blow landed before the last even registered on the ribs, jaw, back, and chest. Like a rag doll stuck in a hurricane, Bakugo stumbled. With his quills blazing, Sonic reappeared behind him and delivered a crushing spin kick that sent Bakugo flying across the arena and slamming into the wall with a loud crack. As Sonic slid to a halt and caught his breath, the glow dimmed. Grinning, he wiped soot from his muzzle. And that's the lightspeed difference. The crowd exploded, and then there was movement. With blood streaming down his lip, Bakugo swayed as he forced himself to rise from the debris. Fire still burning in his wild eyes. Damn you, I'll blow you to hell." His palms were sparking violently as he stumbled forward. He held up one trembling arm. Click. Instead of igniting, the perspiration on his palm fizzled. His knees gave way. He slammed face first into the arena floor with a rumbling growl. His legs finally failed him, but he remained conscious. Sonic let out a breath and at last eased his posture. Stubborn to the end, gotta respect it. As the stadium trembled with the cheers of the crowd, he turned away and dusted himself off. At last, the arena started to fill with dust. There was a sharp tang of burned ozone in the air, and smoke floated in lazy clouds. Bakugo eventually lay on one knee with his palms still weakly sparking and his chest heaving. He appeared to want to continue, but his legs were no longer cooperating. Aizawa intervened swiftly, signaling the end of the match with a raised hand. "Enough. Winner." Sonic, a chorus of applause and incredulity mixed together as the crowd burst into action. What even was that glowing move? I thought Bakugo had him. He's insanely fast, like nothing we've seen. Present Mike's voice boomed over the speakers up in the stands, half laughing with anticipation. Yow. Did you see that, folks? Talk about lightspeed action. Bakugo put up one hell of a fight, but Sonic takes it with style. Mina questioned, where did he even come from? Bakugo slammed a fist to the floor and growled. Damn it, damn it. Sonic brushed dust from his fur and walked over. He gave a quick nod and a faint smirk instead of gloating. Not bad, buddy. You actually gave me a hell of a hard time. You almost had me. Bakugo didn't lash out, but he also didn't accept the hand Sonic extended. To conceal the rage that was brewing beneath his skin, he simply turned his face away. Ojiro hurried him to the recovery girl's infirmary to see how he was doing. Sonic casually waved to the cheering Class 1A audience as he jogged off the stage. But once he was out of the spotlight, his smile turned into a more contemplative one. All of them are strong here. That was only training. Things could quickly become chaotic if I'm not careful. Still in awe of what they had just seen, the rest of Class 1A packed the waiting area. With wide eyes, Kirishima hammered his fists together. Bro, that was epic. You were like, bam bam bam, and then, whoosh. Even Todoroki gave him a look that had the appearance of curiosity. Sonic crossed his arms and leaned back against the wall, shrugging. What can I say? Guess I live for the spotlight. Time passed as the sunset's orange hue subtly replaced the sky's blue. There were people everywhere, eating on the kitchen island, playing video games in the living room, reviewing homework on the tables, and sleeping in their dorms. A green-haired boy and her chocolate-haired companion emerged through the main door. As they entered, they exchanged quiet glances and blushed together in a cute way. From the kitchen, Sonic exclaimed, Yo Zuzu. Why are your clothes wet? Izuku hurried over to him. Wait, please don't scream out loud that we've been out together, he murmured. Ooh, that must mean it went well, well, I did, better than I thought it would. I told you, didn't I? Look at you, blushing and stuttering all over the place. He didn't answer. Uraraka was observing the exchange from a distance when all of a sudden she felt someone grab her arm and drag her into the elevator. Mina. What are you doing? Shish, in my room, now. They arrived at Mina's room in just 1 minute. Mina peeked out her door to see if anyone was listening as they went inside. She shut the door behind her and looked directly at Uraraka. How did it go? I want all the details. Also, why are your clothes wet? She knew exactly what she meant when she asked, Mina, what are you talking about? How did what go? You know what I'm talking about. Spill it, now. She let out a sigh. There was no getting away from her. Well, the majority of people had already gone to their dorms since it was getting quite late. Unable to shake the weight of what he discovered with Eri, Sonic flicked through the channels, absently rolling one of the golden rings between his fingers. Those rings, his rings. Before he was struck by breaking news, he kept switching between comedy shows, action films, and romantic comedies. Breaking news. The black hedgehog with red stripes that has escaped Canada with a national treasure, which was previously presented to you on TVJ News, has finally been captured. He was found in Detroit, Michigan in possession of the emerald, the said Canadian national treasure. Thankfully, after a week of investigation, this high-level international threat has been put under control by American hero, Stars and Stripes. He now is detained by the United States Military Services. Sonic hardly noticed as the news reporter continued. He was no longer alone. There was a shadow. Sonic had to save him, too. Sonic, he turned his head and saw Deku behind him. Did he see all of that? Even though he was getting more anxious, Sonic maintained his trademark smile. Sonic. Yo, Zuzu. Why are you still up at this time? It's getting pret. Deku. That hedgehog on the news, he's your friend, isn't he? Sonic's smile wavered momentarily. Sonic. Yeah. Look, I know this is all kinds of weird. I didn't even plan on ending up here. But if he's in trouble, I have to save him. Deku. But Sonic, he's in another country. You don't even know your way around this world yet, and if the military has him, you'll be treated as an enemy. Sonic. Deku. Then I'll go with you. Sonic. What? No way. You can't, it's... Deku. I trust you. And if he's really your friend, then I doubt he's the villain they're making him out to be. But you'll get lost out there on your own, let me help. This is what heroes do. Sonic frowned and averted his gaze. Sonic. Look, Zuzu. As much as I'd want you to come, I can't let you. This is my problem, and I have to handle it myself. You can't be everyone's hero. Midoriya was hit by the words more forcefully than a Detroit smash. Sonic softened and leaned back. Sonic. But you can help me. Teach me basic geography, help me map out a route. That way, I've at least got a shot. Deku. All right. 10:30 a.m. while Sonic and Eri were running. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. What am I going to wear? I haven't been shopping in forever. I only got dorm clothes, training clothes and one dress way too fancy for this. Suyu sat quietly on Uraraka's bed, resting her chin on her hands and saying, Uraraka, relax. Ribbit. It's just coffee, not a wedding. But still, it's Deku. If I look too casual, it feels like I don't care, but if I dress up too much, it'll look like I'm trying too hard. What do I even say to him? What if there's an awkward silence? You'll survive. Suyu gave a deadpan. Mina stormed into the room with half of her closet in her arms before Uraraka could respond. Emergency Fashion Rescue Squad, at your service, she exclaimed as she threw a bag containing what appeared to be garments onto the bed. Don't worry, Ochako, we'll make you adorable but date casual, trust me. 3 shirts were spread out on Midoriya's bed as he paced his room across the hall. Okay, just, which one? Button up says too serious, hoodie says too casual, t-shirt says I didn't even try, oh, what if she thinks I didn't even try? From the doorway, Iida adjusted his glasses. Midoriya, you're overthinking. The important thing is punctuality and proper etiquette. After searching Midoriya's closet, Todoroki selected a piece and gave it to Deku, saying, just wear this, it matches your hair. Midoriya stopped. Matches my. What, 11:27 a.m. before the dormitories. Deku stood in front of the UA's entrance gate. Campus. Todoroki had lent him a pair of regular cut black jeans and a dark green sweatshirt. He was also wearing white shoes that matched his plain white shirt underneath the sweatshirt. Izuku never had many friends to hang out with for the majority of his life, much less going out on a date with a girl. It was nerve-wracking enough to make friends, but this is a completely different level, Deku. Izuku nearly stumbled over his own feet as he spun around. Uraraka, a little breathless, was jogging toward him and waving clumsily with both hands. She was dressed simply in leggings, a skirt, and a white blouse with a soft pink cardigan that was just enough to dry Deku's throat. Halfway through, he managed to say, You look nice," his voice cracking. Uraraka fumbled with her sleeves, her cheeks flushed. "Why you too? The green looks, good on you." For 3 agonizingly long seconds, they stood silently. At last, Uraraka blurted, "Sue, that coffee place?" Way too loudly, Midoriya said, "Yes, coffee, definitely coffee." "Okay, but where?" There's this place I know of. 12:03 p.m. Musutafu downtown, Bean There Cafe. The cafe was compact but comfortable, with warm light pouring in through the windows. The tables were dotted with office workers, students, and a few off-duty heroes. The air was heavy with the aroma of roasted beans. At a small table by the window, Uraraka and Midoriya sat opposite one another, each holding a steaming mug. With his cup fidgeting, Midoriya inquired, "So, how's training been?" Uraraka laughed uneasily. "Good, exhausting, but good. A lot of zero-gravity laps. How about you?" "Oh, same. Lots of sparring with Kacchan and Sonic, but we each push each other up, so it's fine." They both laughed, awkwardly at first, but then their laughter became more real. Slowly, the tension subsided. "Speaking of, Sonic told me you needed help with homework, did you?" The smile that had been on Uraraka's face a moment before turned pale. "Oh no, I forgot my homework. I was so busy searching for something to wear for this date that I—" She paused, her face flushed red as she realized what she had said. "D-date? It really doesn't have to be a date if you don't want it to. I know that people set us up, I just don't want to make you uncomfortable or feel forced." They stopped for what seemed like an eternity, a few seconds. "Honestly," Izuku began, his face starting to flush, "I don't mind it being a date. If that's okay with you." Ochako was taken aback. That would be the last thing she would expect Deku to say because he was usually so quiet and reserved. I don't mind it either." They talked about their teachers, classmates, and even their favorite food stands in the city, completely forgetting about the homework. The awkward silences became less frequent. Deku even got them both some mochi ice cream. Until Uraraka glanced at the clock, neither of them realized how much time had gone by. "Oh no, it's almost 1 already?" Midoriya blinked. "Wait, seriously? It doesn't even feel like an hour?" She gave him a gentle smile that caused his chest to constrict. "Guess time goes fast when you're having fun, huh?" Izuku's brain shorted out and he froze. Why yeah. "Well, the day isn't over yet. We can still go somewhere else. What do you think?" "Yes, of course." 1:08 p.m. Beach Dagoba. The breeze carried the gulls' cries as the afternoon sun glinted over the waves. There was not a single piece of trash to be seen along the expansive, spotless shoreline. Gleaming in the summer light, the tide rolled languidly against the sand. Uraraka's gaze expanded. "Whoa, this place is gorgeous. I didn't even know Musutafu had a beach like this." With his hands tucked into his pockets, Midoriya gave a slight smile. "Yeah, it's kind of special to me. I used to come here a lot before UA." Her head was cocked. "Really? It must have been nice, having a spot like this to yourself." He laughed uneasily. "Well, it wasn't exactly like this back then. It used to be, a lot messier. But I guess I liked seeing how much it could change. Kind of gave me motivation, you know." Uraraka looked at him curiously but did not press the issue. Rather, her smile grew brighter. "Well, I'm glad you brought me here. It feels peaceful." A wave slid up and splashed over their shoes before Midoriya could react. Uraraka laughed and leapt back with a squeak. "Okay. Maybe not that peaceful." Midoriya looked down at his wet sneakers in panic. "Ah. These are new. Todoroki lent me these jeans. If I ruin them he'll—" His agitated digression caused Uraraka to snort. She pulled at his sleeve and dragged him toward the shore, saying, "Calm down, Deku. It's just water. Come on, if we're going to get wet, let's do it properly." Wait. Uraraka, hold on. However, she was already taking off her shoes and smiling broadly as she stepped into the surf. After just a moment's hesitation, Midoriya put his own aside and walked over to her. For a while, they simply allowed the waves to lap at their ankles because the water felt cool against their feet. Uraraka then stooped to pick up a handful of water and threw it directly at him. Deku sputtered, blinking through the droplets. "You Uraraka." She laughed. "What? You looked too serious. Also I told you to call me Ochako." After puffing up his cheeks, Midoriya leaned down and gave her a wave in return. Before long, they were laughing and splashing each other like children as they darted across the shallows. Midoriya nearly fell face first into the tide after tripping on a patch of slick sand, but Uraraka grabbed his arm just in time. "Be careful," she exclaimed in between chuckles. "You okay?" Midoriya nodded rapidly, her face burning. "Why yeah, thanks." They stood there for a while, catching their breath while the ocean breeze blew through their hair. Uraraka's expression softened as she looked out at the horizon. "It's really nice here, thanks for sharing it with me, Deku." As the warmth spread through him, he felt his chest tighten. "I'm glad you like it." There was a long pause before Izuku was overcome by an unidentified surge of bravery. Deep down, there were some suppressed emotions, however, they reappeared. "Oh Ochako, honestly, I really enjoyed this day with you. I feel like it has gotten us closer." Me too. I'd like for us to have more moments like this." "I'd like that too. And I'd like for us to get closer together. Maybe, work towards something, if you're okay with that." "Yeah, let's do that, this time." The waves were comfortable as they filled the quiet. They had drifted together, and neither of them realized how close. A week ago, in Toronto, Canada, it was night. Headlights flashed across the crowded streets, streetlights glowed in long lines, and stars twinkled faintly overhead. Along the sidewalks, couples were walking, some conversing, others absorbed in their phones. The night was like any other in the city. Naturally, Shadow was unaware of all of that. A shallow crater was left in the grass where the black hedgehog had just crashed into a small park close to the waterfront. He remained motionless for a long time. At last he moaned softly and opened his eyes. His energy stores were entirely depleted, and every part of him hurt. It was a struggle just to stand. He stumbled to his feet, looking around the strange skyline of neon signs and glass towers. Where am I? This was all illogical. Nothing in his memory matched the city. His final coherent thought was to fight. Having trouble. Then chaos control flashed brightly. Then there was only darkness. Shadow shook a little and balled his fists. He detested being stuck in a strange place and detested this weakness. He encountered people of many shapes and sizes as he walked around the city. Some appeared to be regular people, while others were odd, like a reptilian man who appeared to have just left work. He glanced around again and noticed that someone else appeared to be using telekinesis to carry his bag. Strange, really strange. All of them appeared to possess some kind of power, and it's not chaos energy, he thought. The window of a tiny corner store next to him broke, as if things couldn't get any stranger. Two figures rushed into the street. One tall and wiry, his arms extending strangely as he held a bulging bag, and the other comically round, rolling on stubby legs with unexpected speed. The skinny one mocked, "Heh heh, that was too easy. Should have seen the guy's face when robbed him." Shadow's eyes narrowed. In a normal situation, he would have stopped this nonsense before it started, but his body was slow and his energy was still low from the collision. He had no idea where he was, much less if it was worthwhile to get involved. Then he noticed that they turned, obstructing a lone woman on the sidewalk. The stretchy one swung out with an extended arm, sending her reeling back, and she froze, wide-eyed. Shadow's chest grew constricted. Attacking an innocent person was a different matter from robbery. "Maria." Her voice, faint but indisputable, reverberated in his head. "Her desire," she begged. "Improve the state of the world." His fists clenched, a sharper resolve temporarily drowning out the fatigue in his body. His red eyes were fixed on the thugs. He lowered his posture and muttered, "This world may be strange, but scum like you are the same everywhere." Before either of the two crooks could react, Shadow slid forward and appeared between them. The air crackled and hummed as the crimson energy of his eyes spilled out of him in unstable arcs. Flatly, "Let her go," he said. With a sneer, the lanky one extended his arm like a whip. "Or what? You'll..." Crack. Shadow disappeared, then resurfaced before him. He detonated instead of merely punching. Uncontrolled chaos energy erupted as his fist struck the man's chest. Before the thief's body hit the ground, the impact blew him off his feet and bent a street lamp in half. He was not rising again. Shadow flinched. Too much. Once more. The round one roared and bounced like a wrecking ball in his direction. "You'll regret that, freak." "Well, clearly you don't know who I am." Shadow opened the door for him. He misjudged the distance by a few feet but was still close enough to teleport behind him at the last second. With a spin kick, he struck out, sending chaos sparks flying from his heel. In an avalanche of brick and plaster, The villain's enormous body crashed through a shop wall after being flung across the street. Shadow wasn't done, though. He was unable to stop because his body was demanding that the energy be released. His fists glowed red as he ran forward, hitting repeatedly with blinding speed. Shockwaves from each blow caused pavement cracks and broken windows. The storefront had been reduced to rubble by the time the villain collapsed, unconscious. "I'm the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog." Over him, Shadow stood panting, his hands shaking as the chaos energy grew out of control. Despite the fact that he was already unconscious, he raised it, his arm glowing like molten steel as the power surged through it. Somewhere he had to let this chaos out. However, he had no intention of killing the man. He said, "Chaos," in a low, strained, but unstoppable voice. Spear. The energy burst into the air like lightning. It was disastrous. A red explosion filled the night sky, causing cars to skid and alarms to go off. Glass fragments fell from broken windows. The air was heavy with the smell of scorched concrete and ozone. He launched the spear of chaos into the air. Crimson sparks continued to flicker across Shadow's fur as he staggered back, chest heaving. He took a quick look at his wrists, naked. His eyes narrowed as he realized the inhibitor rings. It makes sense why he was unable to control it. It makes sense that every strike was nuclear. Chaos energy buzzed uncontrollably around him as he clenched his fists. He was not under the influence of the inhibitors. But there's a problem. Except in dire circumstances, he never removed them. And something must have happened because he woke up in this new world without them. Then he realized. Recollections. A furious Sonic, the space colony arc, Eggman and his latest endeavor, etc. He whispered, "Sonic, he did this, and now, Eggman." However, sirens screamed in the distance before he could finish gathering his thoughts. Shadow said nothing more and threw himself onto a nearby rooftop, looking around at the gilded skyline. The city spread out in front of him, strange and alien yet vibrant. Sonic was out there somewhere. And the turmoil and rage that were building inside of him would not stop shattering everything until Shadow discovered him. Desperate to find his blue rival, he raced through the city for the remainder of the night. He looked everywhere, but to no avail. He needed to continue searching. First day during the day and night, Shadow scoured the downtown areas, darting from rooftop to rooftop like a crimson streak. Below him, the lights of the city were blurred, with endless crowds flowing like rivers. Every time he thought he saw a flash of blue, it turned out to be just another quirk user flashing. Every time he turned a corner or saw a face other than Sonic, his frustration increased. Shadow stepped in that night to stop a carjacker from tearing a woman out of her car. The thief was rendered unconscious and the car was totaled after the 3-second battle, which included one kick and one explosion of chaos energy. The woman, afraid of him, screamed. Before the police arrived, Shadow departed. Day 2 tracing warehouses and railroad tracks, he searched the industrial district in the hopes of finding Sonic's scent or trail. Rather, he discovered a store owner being shaken down by 2 thugs. His teleportation was off once more. He materialized behind them, delivered a single blow, and the 2 men were smashed into the pavement so hard that the storefront windows were shattered. Instead of expressing gratitude, the store owner simply cowered and looked at Shadow as if he were a monster. Before he could hear it, Shadow clenched his fists and disappeared. Day 3 he hadn't slept yet. He searched the city's outskirts, including the hills and beaches. His movements were erratic and twitchy, as if his body were powered solely by chaos energy. He happened upon a mugging in progress late that evening. 3 members of a gang attempted to ambush him, but his erratic power made the battle disastrous. The street was flooded after a fire hydrant exploded due to one too many chaos spears. People screamed and scattered as cars spun out. Shadow sensed that he was losing control and that his body was burning itself out, but the gang was unconscious before they even realized what had happened. But he persisted. Sonic must have been present. Day 4 Shadow eventually slowed as dawn broke and he found himself in a peaceful park. Chaos sparks flickered faintly around his arms as he sat under a tree, breathing heavily. Then, as if someone had dropped it, he saw the little leather-bound journal in the grass. He opened it curiously. The headline said, "Mysterious Hedgehog Vigilante defeats small street gang. Is he a villain or a hero?" He continued reading with a furrowed brow. The article went into great detail about the devastation that occurred 4 nights ago, including the broken lamppost, the storefront that was shattered, and the criminals who were unconscious. Witnesses had described a blur of red and black with glowing eyes. He was the one. Shadow closed the book abruptly while gazing at the skyline of the city. After just 4 days in a world he didn't comprehend, His name and presence had already started to get out there. He was no longer merely looking. People were now observing. He rose and resumed his search. For hours, he continued to walk, veering farther and farther from the city. He wanted to give up. He was worn out, erratic, and out of control. His only desire was to go to sleep. However, then something pulled at him. Something very familiar was calling to him. Emerald of Chaos. He turned his head in the direction of the source. A group of laborers were huddled around a new crater in the distance, with floodlights piercing the darkness and equipment buzzing. Shadow already knew what they were staring at. He didn't need to see it. His pulse accelerated. He slid forward in a flash, emerging at the edge of the crater. As he grabbed the glowing emerald out of the lead worker's hands, gasps broke out. The man stumbled. Hey, that's a national treasure, you can't. Another exclaimed, wait. It's that hedgehog they've been talking about on the news. He's a villain. Call the heroes. With a frown, Shadow put the emerald in his quills. But the air shimmered before he could run. Around him, figures appeared. 4 heroes in costume, each of them holding a maple leaf in some way. The leader, wearing a half mask and dressed in red and white, moved forward. He said, "You're not going anywhere with that, creature. In the name of the Canadian Hero Association, surrender." Shadow's gaze grew strained. Out of my way. They made a lunge. Another leapt high and slammed down with seismic force that split the earth, while the first sent a volley of spikes across the crater. A third, full of vitality, threw a ray of light at him. Shadow vanished from view, teleporting wildly, too close, too far, his power erratic. His counterattacks were devastating. A spinning kick sent the seismic hero tumbling through 3 trucks, and a single chaos spear turned a steel excavator into molten slag. However, the heroes persisted in their efforts to contain him and weaken him. His energy of chaos erupted out of control, destroying the battlefield with each dodge and every strike. In the distance, sirens cried out. He had to stop doing this before he passed out from exhaustion. With a growl, Shadow said, "TCH, enough of this." He looked toward the border to the south. He was labeled a criminal in this world, and he had no allies or control. To stay was to be captured. He tightened his grip on the Chaos Emerald, which increased his power. As he teleported miles away, across rivers, highways, and forests, a blinding flash consumed him until the air felt different. When he came to a stop, he was standing on top of a skyscraper, with a blue rectangle with several stars hanging from a pole and a red and white striped flag. The skyline in front of him was glowing. He was familiar with this area from the maps he had seen while exploring Toronto and obtaining information about his whereabouts. America. Shadow's eyes glowed dimly in the darkness as he exhaled. "Sonic, I'll find you, no matter what." He leapt from the structure. With bright lights on the horizon and shadows in every alley, Detroit was a restless city. Shadow stayed on the darker paths, slipping between street lamp flickering and crumbling brick walls. He had been fleeing for a day or two, being pursued by drones and rumors of patrols. He had crossed the border, and the US knew it. Now he was being pursued by soldiers. He could sense the eyes even here. They had labeled him a global danger. Shadow froze just as he was about to cut through another alley. A boy was tinkering with a broken radio while sitting on the curb outside a dilapidated corner store, aged 14, possibly 15. His cap was pulled down, and his clothes were worn. The radio died after hissing and sparking. With a sigh, the boy tossed it away. He looked up at that moment and saw him. Shadow stiffened, prepared to disappear into the night. The boy's face, however, glowed with awe rather than fear. "No way, you're real?" Shadow's feet were immobile. "Keep going. Stay out of it." However, there was something too familiar about the boy's voice. "It's too hot." The boy stood up and said, "You're that hedgehog, right? The one in the news? They've been writing about you in the papers. A vigilante. Some say you're a monster, others say you're a hero." He moved in closer. Though his feet resisted, his mind cried out for him to flee. The boy asked, almost grinning, "You stopped that gang the other day, didn't you?" "That was you. I knew it." Memories flashed through Shadow's mind. Maria grinning at him through the ark's glass. "You'll make the world happy, won't you, Shadow?" He shook his head, pushing the picture out of his mind. Maria wasn't here. He was not going to pretend. At last, Shadow muttered, "Go home, kid," in a cold, low voice. "Forget you saw me." But Marcus, the boy, remained motionless. In contrast to most adults, he had fearless, sharp eyes. The words, "I'm not scared of you," Marcus said. The government's calling you dangerous, but dangerous people don't save strangers. Dangerous people don't fight for others. Shadow turned, preparing to leave. Marcus called out, "Wait," and moved forward. "They're looking for you. I've seen the reports. Patrols are crawling the city. If they find you, they'll—" Shadow's fists trembled, but his voice was flat as he said, "Let them try." Marcus looked at him intently. I know a place you can hide. My uncle works nights. He won't notice. It's not much, but it's safe. Safer than being out here," he said, swallowing nervously. Shadow stopped. Why? Why was this kid giving him a place to stay? He was trusting him, but why? Another flash. Maria's voice echoing, her hands clasped around his. "Promise me, Shadow. Promise you'll protect them, the people on Earth." For a long time, Shadow closed his eyes. He opened them to find Marcus still standing there, unyielding and unflinching. Shadow defied his instincts and followed him. The hedgehog traveled through numerous streets with the child. While traveling, Shadow noticed several people observing him and the boy, as though he were aliens, which he was. They finally reached the hiding spot after 5 minutes of walking. There were numerous tools, paint, and auto parts strewn across the shelves of the tiny garage. "You can hide here for a little while. I know it's not much, but it's all I got." Shadows found it difficult to speak. He hadn't been so much loved by anyone in a long time. He was and always would be a recluse, but this boy. He no longer felt so isolated. In a whisper, "Thank you, Marcus. The name's Marcus." Marcus. As Marcus left Shadow in the garage, the day continued. Little things caught his attention. Notebooks filled with sketches, the same broken radio Marcus kept fiddling with, and posters of heroes. Some foreign, some pro-hero, on the wall. Shadow is permitted to remain in the garage by Marcus. Shadow doesn't sleep at first. Instead, he paces while gazing at the dim light of the Chaos Emerald in his hand and questioning why he even followed this boy. He feels the pain of Maria's memory more keenly than before. Marcus brings him food in the morning. He smiles shyly, but it's just cheap sandwiches and juice. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Shadow nearly retaliates that he is self-sufficient. Then he sees Marcus's eyes once more, hopeful and inquisitive. He sits and takes the food for the first time in years. Marcus later demanded that they go for a walk. Shadow almost objected because exposure meant danger, but he was persuaded by the boy's unwavering resolve. With his arms folded and his eyes searching each alley, he trailed behind. They avoided the hustle and bustle of downtown Detroit by staying on quieter streets. Marcus pointed out broken streetlights that the city hadn't bothered to fix, murals painted by local artists, and an abandoned auto factory that had long since closed. Marcus proudly declared, "This is my neighborhood, despite the area's scars from poverty. Not much, huh? But it's home." With his red eyes scanning the ruins, Shadow remained silent. Something twisted inside Marcus as he smiled in spite of everything. Marcus took a folded newspaper from his bag as they came to a stop close to a dilapidated playground. A grainy picture of a black blur. Shadow, from one of his previous fights, appeared on the front page. "They're calling you the Black Phantom," Marcus remarked. "They think you're some kind of weapon that escaped from Canada. A threat." The headline caused Shadow's eyes to narrow. "What do you think?" thought Marcus. The hedgehog stared down at his reflection in a puddle and remained silent for a long time. His voice finally emerged, rough and low. "I don't know what I am anymore." Marcus stuffed the paper away with a frown. "You saved people before. Weapons don't save people. Heroes do." Shadow nearly snorted, but the boy's remarks went deeper than he had anticipated. They sat in the basement of Marcus's house later that afternoon. Marcus produced a sketchbook and opened it to reveal pages of illustrations of fictional and well-known heroes. Shadow stopped cold after reading one page. He stood tall, his energy whirling, but he was drawn not as a monster but as a guardian. Marcus gave his neck a scratch. I just thought you looked more like this. Not like the news makes you out to be." Shadow was speechless for the first time in days. Marcus tinkered with his malfunctioning radio as night fell. Static hummed until, miraculously, a faint old song, the kind Maria used to love, slipped through. It was hopeful and gentle. Shadow stopped. He was briefly struck by the memory of Maria laughing and humming a familiar song on board the Ark. His chest grew constricted. He nearly caught a glimpse of her sitting next to Marcus, grinning at him once more. He uttered the words, "Maria," barely audible to Marcus. The boy raised his head. "Huh?" Shadow gave a quick shake of his head. "Nothing." However, he remained by the window, listening to the soft melody while observing the city lights. For the first time in a long time, Shadow allowed himself to feel the ghost of peace, not actual peace. The eyes of Shadows opened in the middle of the night. There was a problem. The sound of what sounded like helicopter blades made his ears twitch. They located him, and if he hadn't taken any action, Marcus would also be taken away by them. Shadow. Marcus was half asleep on the ground when he turned his head. He felt his heart constrict. He was in this mess because of him. He wasn't worthy of the repercussions. "They're here for me," he said in a harsh, low voice. "We have to escape. You can't let them take you, they're gonna. I am done running away. You though, you should escape. You'll be considered a criminal if they see you with me." "But what will you do?" He grinned. "If they want me, they'll have to try first." To the roof of the garage, Shadow teleported. When he looked up, he saw a fleet of advanced jets and helicopters flying overhead, all of them flashing light at the Shadow. The ultimate weapon. Shadow the Hedgehog. You are considered an international threat to the safety of the citizens of the United States and the world. For the crimes you have committed against nation of Canada, surrender, or pay the consequences, a booming voice said. He squinted to see a tall, strong figure perched atop one of the fighter jets. She wore a suit with the colors and emblem of the American flag and had long blonde hair. Face with a proud and radiant smile. Shadows shouted back, "Who are you? And what do you want?" "Me? I am Stars and Stripes, protector of the United States of America, and I will be the one to take you down." Shadow glanced back down at the garage door. Marcus remained there, his eyes watching with concern and fear. The sight caused Shadow's eyes to widen. He faced the threat posed by Stars and Stripes with a renewed sense of resolve. "I will not let them take someone away from me, or him," he replied. Maria's words reverberated in his mind, "Save this world for me, Shadow. I will protect myself, for him." Regarding Marcus. It was eerily silent in the city's desert. The majority of the neighborhood was awake, but nobody dared to speak. All eyes were on Shadow as they watched the altercation through their windows. In the center of it all, Shadow stood, his chest rising and falling more quickly than usual. Each faint throb of the Chaos Emerald at his side sent heat through his bloodstream. He hadn't slept well in weeks, and he hadn't slept the night before. The absence of his inhibitor rings prevented his body from ever calming down. He was plagued by restlessness, with energy piercing every muscle fiber. He was aware that someone would arrive at any moment. In his search for stability, he had fled heroes and left chaotic energy traces throughout cities. The US would send someone to find him, of course. And they had tonight. In the sky, engines roared. Above, a tight formation of fighter jets circled. Then a new presence sliced through the air, a tall woman with golden hair whipping behind her like a battle flag, and the wind of Detroit city change. Stripes and Stars. Her boots slammed the ground and kicked up a cloud of dust as America's top hero fell into the cracked earth. She stood up straight, her enormous body intimidating even Shadow. Their gazes met. The Hedgehog narrowed its red eyes. Sharp focus burned in the hero's steady blue eyes. Both initially just measured, analyzed, and gauged without saying anything. Shadow rambled in his mind, "She has information about me, she knows my name." Star and Stripe had already received a briefing from her. Leaked video, reports, and satellite photos. She was aware of his abilities, which included unfathomable speed, teleportation, and energy projections. The rumors of a alien weapon, and the ultimate life form, had also reached her ears. She still clenched her jaw. She muttered to herself, "Justice prevails regardless of who you are." Then, crack! Like a bullet from a god's rifle, Shadow moved forward in a blur. His initial blow struck her crossed arms with such force that it echoed through the city like thunder. Boots digging trenches in the soil, Star was hurled backward across the cracked earth, even though she was braced, before she finally slid to a stop and coughed up dust. "Damn, he's faster than ever before. I'm not able to play around for very long or." No time. Once more, he was there, his shadow looming large against the moonlight. She turned and delivered a counterpunch, but her fist only hit the air. Her pupils contracted in disbelief. Teleportation. In the same moment, Shadow reappeared behind her, his foot slashing out. The spin kick whipped her into a huge billboard after cracking across her neck. Wood splintered and steel screamed as it fell with her, burying her below. Dust arose. With a moan, Star pushed the debris away. She gritted her teeth and regulated her breathing. She said in a whisper to herself, "All I need is one touch. I know his name. Just one." But Shadow knew better and stayed out of the way. He discovered that his power only enabled him to momentarily paralyze someone or something after touching them during one of his final run-ins with a small-time villain. He decided to keep her at bay because he didn't know anything about her. Pow! His back exploded with pain. Shadow's gaze shot upward. Jets. Lasers streaked across the sky as the squadron above opened fire. His annoyance flashed as he twisted and weaved between the beams. His gaze, however, remained fixed on the greater danger. Brushing the concrete off her arms, Stars and Stripes stumbled to her feet. Her eyes were burning brighter than ever, but the corner of her lip was stained with blood. Her voice boomed like a command as she yelled. "New order. The impact of any force that touches my body will be cut in half." The words carved themselves into the world itself, and the air hummed with authority. For a moment, Shadow froze. That was her power. Rules can be rewritten by her. He balled his fists up. Then let's test it. He disappeared and then resurfaced in front of her, slamming a fist that was strong enough to shatter a tank into her chest. She remained motionless. He sped over to her side and struck her jaw with a roundhouse. Nothing. Shadow's red eyes widened as he saw her arm move, an open palm reaching for him instead of a fist. "She wants to put her hands on me." Boots kicking dust, he twisted into a backflip and landed just out of reach. With his fingers spread wide, his hand sprang forward. Chaos Spear. Dozens of projectiles tore through the night as golden light burst forth. However, the output was excessive. With heightened energy, each spear screamed and exploded like artillery against the desert. Shadow sensed it immediately, power leaking out of his chest in an uncontrollable manner. He was cursed once more by his missing inhibitor rings. Between the spears were stars, and her silhouette was painted in firelight by explosions. She bounded ahead, cutting the gap. But another blow slammed into her ribs, this one bursting with bloody mayhem. The force took her breath, even when cut in half. She grimaced as she stumbled. TCH, she extended her hand once more, but he had already left and was slipping into afterimages. Shadow's breathing became labored. His body trembled with uncontrollable power. Sparks of red lightning danced across his fur with every movement. His pupils faded into glowing voids, and his sclera darkened. The winds roared. Subsequently, his fur changed, turning from black to glowing crimson. He has a blank stare. His body glowed like a tempest. This was no longer Shadow. Chaos Shadow was this. The problem is that Shadow had made every effort to limit his power and maintain as much control as possible, which wasn't much. But it was becoming harder and harder every minute without his inhibitors. But evaluating his current circumstances, he lost control as he soaked up the energy of the chaos. But as soon as he lost what little self-control he still possessed, he was unable to regain it, particularly with that emerald of chaos feeding him. He wouldn't stop until he cleared his mind of all the chaos. As he zipped forward, the ground shattered beneath him. When he struck her, it was like a meteor hitting the ground. The horizon was sucked up by the explosion of dust and debris. Her lungs heaved as she caught herself as Star's body skidded across the ground. Again with a command in her voice, she roared. "New order. The air around me will solidify into a body 10 times my size." As the atmosphere solidified and shaped into a gigantic, glowing representation of herself, an ethereal giant that towered over Shadow, the desert trembled. With crimson lightning crackling, Shadow cocked his head. Then he made a move. Because of the tiredness and restless nights, his body wasn't functioning at its peak. Normally, he could have taken care of her much more quickly, but he was feeling the effects of these restless nights. The battlefield had changed beyond recognition. What began as a brawl of fists and well-timed blows had now devolved into something primordial, a battlefield infused with chaos energy. Windows shattered, buildings around the highway cracked, and automobile alarms sounded non-stop. Every time a flash of crimson lightning sparked off Shadow's body, the air trembled. With her chest hurting where Shadow's final rib-shattering blow had struck, Stars and Stripes steadied her breathing. Nothing like this had ever happened to her in her battles against Nomu, war criminals, and even giant villains with abilities that could level cities. Shadow was not only powerful, but also insane, as though all of his self-control had been torn away. He had yet to reach his zenith, the Hedgehog said, Maria, in a distorted, nearly broken voice. He had lost all humanity, as evidenced by his lifeless, white eyes. "I won't lose, not again." Even though Stars hadn't moved, the red energy sent ripples outward, knocking him back a step. She clenched her teeth and muttered her order. "New order. The ground beneath my feet will never break." Under her boots, The shaky asphalt provided stability and protection from the storm. She knew better than to settle in, though. In less than a second, he could be in front of her. Then he disappeared. Zip! The instincts of the stars cried out. She raised her arm in a commanding gesture rather than a blow. New order. The air in front of me becomes a wall of steel. Shadow's spinning kick struck the invisible barricade with a titanic clang. The force of the impact forced her to skid back despite the reinforced air, and sparks danced like fireworks. He instantly bounced back, disappearing into red lightning streaks. He was everywhere, above, behind, to her side. Chaos, Lance. Buildings were sliced through like paper by beams of unstable energy that ripped across the night sky. A stray blast clipped one of the fighter jet's wings, sending it spiraling down, scattering the area's fighter jets in panic. Shit, hissed Stars. She couldn't continue like this indefinitely. She was losing the battle by blocking and countering, and she would be eliminated if even one of his blasts landed clean. Then she became aware of something. All of his attacks were wild, including the kicks, punches, and projectiles. Yes, brutal, but careless. This was not the assassin-like, somewhat accurate control she had witnessed earlier in their conversation. This was the unbridled flow of raw power. Upon realizing, he's burning out, that emerald, it's fueling him, but it's eating him alive. He would crash if she could survive long enough. With energy-cracking claws, Shadow reappeared before her. Instead of cutting her chest, he tore across an imperceptible surface, causing it to spark like glass shattering. Breathless, she clutched her ribs as she stumbled backward. He simply had too much power. Shadow's voice wavered between rage and agony as he growled, "You're nothing but another obstacle." His body wavered like a flame ready to burn itself to ashes. "I won't let you take him from me." Chaos energy exploded outward as Shadow gave a guttural roar. Broken pavement, cars, and debris were flung into the air. Everything within range was destroyed as crimson lightning twisted into raw energy tornadoes. Despite her anchored ground, the gale slammed her with enough force to almost topple her as Stars crossed her arms in front of her face. Shadow vanished when the confusion subsided. Abruptly, he reappeared, seized her by the collar, and hurled her into the air. Shadow had reappeared behind her after her momentum peaked, but this time his glow was stronger than before. Chaos, blast. The detonation was devastating. His hovering form grew into a perfect sphere of crimson annihilation that vaporized pieces of buildings and swallowed fighter jets in mid-flight. The red explosion faded after a few heavy seconds. As he and the Stars' bodies involuntarily plunged towards the earth, the Shadow's glow gradually faded. Both of them fell to the ground, their bodies unresponsive. "Star!" exclaimed a pilot as he leapt from the aircraft's cockpit. "Stars, are you okay?" Her hand twitched a little. "She's alive." The words, "My body will not succumb to any damage made strictly by an explosion," were uttered by her just before Shadow detonated. Although she was still exhausted and her body was immobile, it worked. She began, he exploded in the sky to avoid casualties. "Stars, what are you saying? Maybe he isn't a villain." After saying those final words, her body finally failed, and her eyes closed. While Stars and Stripes were taken to the closest hospital, a group of paramedics and military personnel arrived on the scene and took Marcus and Shadow into custody. "We've defeated Shadow the Hedgehog. About a week has gone by since Sonic and Deku learned of Shadow's capture, and a lot has happened for Sonic in that time. Unfortunately, after some of his classmates argued over whether or not he was naked, they gave him his school uniform, gym attire, and a few casual clothes. Additionally, he continued to train with Izuku and occasionally Bakugo, though things could get heated at times, and passed a number of tests and quizzes, which he was surprisingly good at, earning slightly above average grades. Sonic had also gained a good deal of respect from the blonde, and vice versa, even though they still harbored a slight rivalry. Despite his reluctance, Sonic understood that he couldn't just dash in to save his spiky rival right away. He needed to prepare himself, wait a little, and make a plan, all of which he struggled with. Fortunately, Izuku was with him. This Sunday morning, Sonic got up and prepared to go to the gym Gamma to meet Izuku for their daily training. In fact, he had begun to make some headway in controlling his energy output with his assistants. He could fire at least 2 bursts, each at roughly 50% power, before collapsing, though he was still far from perfect. However, progress is progress. He noticed a tiny, well-known pair standing in front of him as he opened his dorm door to leave. 2 teenagers, one with a red backpack, a horn, and silver long hair, and one with green hair and freckles. "Mr. Sonic!" squealed Eri joyfully. Despite his mild fatigue from the early morning, Sonic grinned and patted her head, asking, "Hey buddy, did ya miss me?" He glanced back up at a groggy Midoriya, who appeared to have gone without sleep for a month. "Hey Zuzu, you good? You don't look alive, huh?" "Why yes, I'm fine. I am just, yawn, I just studied late last night." He asked, "Sure. Well, why is Eri? Not that I don't want to see her, but don't you think it would be a little dangerous to bring her to our training?" "Training? Not today. It's actually your turn to watch over Eri. Mr. Aizawa told me you and I can switch babysitting Eri every week, so, bigger yawn, so we don't get overworked." "Oh right. I kinda forgot about that. But why should it cancel our training? We can give her to someone else just for some time, you know." "Well, I'm kind of busy. I'm just going out today." He fell over. The two exchanged glances as though Midoriya was attempting to convey a message that Sonic was unable to comprehend. "It's Sir Night Eye's funeral today, and I need someone to watch her, so why not you?" Sonic's voice trailed off. "Oh, I'm sorry. Sure, I'll keep her as much as you want. Plus I'm pretty sure it's my week to babysit her." Well, thank you, I guess. Yeah, no problem. Now go. Don't be late at all funeral." Fading into the darkness of the hallway, he hurried down it to reach his room. Sonic turns to face Eri. "So buddy, what you wanna do?" Her stomach made a low rumbling sound, but she didn't react right away. "I guess I want to eat." "Yeah, figured, let's go then." "I guess I'm hungry." "Yeah, I figured, then let's go." Eri. Puzzled, Sonic stood before the magazine page. Uraraka had shown him the same recipe for pancakes that were ready in a minute. He decided to give it a shot because it seemed so simple. He tapped impatiently on the counter and muttered, "So much for it, easily ready, recipe, eggs, flour, milk, sugar, butter, who even has time for all this? I could have run across the city, grabbed a stack of pancakes, and been back before this stove even warmed up." Eri interrupted his grousing with a tiny voice, Mr. Sonic?" She was observing him intently with wide, inquisitive eyes while perched on a chair at the kitchen's edge with her legs hanging down. "Are we making breakfast?" "Yep," Sonic said as he turned to face her and placed his hands on his hips. "And today, you're my sous chef. That means helper. Think you can handle it?" As she processed the new word, Eri blinked. Then she nodded at him. "Sous chef. That's the spirit," Sonic exclaimed, pulling up the sleeves of his shirts. He looked at the recipe again and said, "Okay. Operation Pancake starts now. First step, break 6 eggs." Eri scowled as her hands shook and she reached for one of the eggs. The shell crumbled into the yolk when she gently cracked it on the bowl's side. Panic widened her eyes. "Oh no, I messed it up." Hey, no worries." Sonic bounded back and forth in a flash, removing the fragments of shell before they had even sunk. He gave her a wink. "Problem solved. That's why you got me on the team." She melted her panic into a little giggle. "You're fast. Fastest in the world, kiddo. Plus, I know how to deal with eggs." Step by step, they continued. Milk, butter, etc. With Sonic guiding her hands, Eri measured out the flour, but half of it spilled onto the counter. Sonic sneezed, launching a snowstorm of flour dust into the air. Sonic's face was white with laughter as he exclaimed, "Ha-choo! Looks like it's winter already." Eri covered her mouth to suppress a laugh, but he heard it. "Oh, so you do think I'm funny, huh?" he said with a dramatic finger-wagging motion. "Careful, Eri. I'll start charging you for laughs." She hurriedly said, "No," but paused when she realized he was kidding. She flushed. The batter was mixed using a sonic whisk, which spun so quickly that the bowl nearly vibrated off the counter. And, done. He held the whisk up like a sword and slid it out with a flourish. It was a golden, smooth, nearly glowing mixture. Whispering, "Whoa," Eri said. "Pretty cool, right?" "Why yeah." Eri gently pulled on Sonic's arm as he reached for the skillet, saying, "Okay, step whatever now. Pour it in the pan." With a whisper, she said, "See, can I try?" Sonic's eyebrows went up. "You sure? It's hot stuff. Gotta be careful." She gave a firm nod. He grinned. "All right then, sous chef. Let's do it together." She tipped the ladle while he steadied her hands. With a pleasing hiss, the batter formed a circle as it poured into the pan. The sound caused Eri's eyes to light up. She exclaimed, "We did it." A few minutes later, Sonic flipped it, launching the pancake into the air and effortlessly catching it, saying, "Darn right we did. Perfect form. 10 out of 10. Eri gave her a gentle clap and grinned more broadly than he had all morning. Cooking it properly required some trial and error. One was undercooked, and the other was burned. The third, however, was flawless. A single pancake turned into 2, 3, and finally a stack. Soon, they were seated at the table with golden pancakes heaped on plates and syrup trickling down the sides. With 10 hedgehogs' appetite, Sonic drove his fork into the ground. Man, I could eat 100 of these. Eri looked down at hers and hesitated. With his mouth already full, Sonic asked, "What's up?" She muttered, "I've never had this before." His hand froze the fork. Sonic's typical smile vanished for a second. He glanced at the young girl, horn showing through her silver hair, hands gripping the fork as if it were a strange object. Remembering how Overhaul used to ignore her to the point where she hardly knew basic things always made him sick. At least it was over, though. He could only fill her in on everything she had been missing. With a quiet, "Well then," he put down his fork. "Guess this makes it your first pancake ever." Slowly, she nodded. Sonic raised his fork once more and gestured to her plate, saying, "Then we gotta make it special. First bite's on you, kiddo. Go on." Eri cut a piece carefully, dipped it in syrup, and held it to her lips. Her eyes immediately grew wide. Her face was filled with warmth, sweetness, and an almost comforting quality. After chewing slowly, she gave Sonic the tiniest, most sincere smile. "It's good." With pride, Sonic crossed his arms and leaned back. "Hey, told ya. World's fastest hedgehog, world's fastest chef." Eri laughed once more loudly this time, and that little chuckle was more valuable to Sonic than all the emeralds in the world. After a while, the two of them were outside, still on the UA campus. He had been invited by Aizawa to quirk train with Eri whenever he could. It can't hurt to try, even if he still didn't know much about quirks. Eri's ability to rewind basically allows her to return someone or something to a previous state, shape, etc., according to what he had been told. Sonic was considering how to get Eri to activate her powers and what to do so while she was simply sitting in the grass playing with a butterfly that had landed on her nose. Sonic did not want to be a failed quirk training experiment. Something caught his attention as he glanced around. It was avian. A wounded bird. It was unable to flap his wings and appeared to be in pain. It brought back memories of his earlier days, when he would chase Eggman around Green Hill to rescue any small animal that Robotnik had captured. Gently, he picked up the bird and brought it to Eri. "All right, Eri. Now, it's time quirk train, quirk, train." She cocked her head to her side and inquired. "Yup. Today, I need you to be a hero. You think you're up for it?" I'll try." Perfect. In front of her, he dropped the bird slowly. It nearly whimpered in agony. The sight made Eri's heart tighten. "Look, Eri, I know this Overhaul guy told you that your quirk is a curse, but honestly, I think it's truly a blessing. You are the only person able to save that bird. Can you save him?" Her eyes suddenly began to well up with tears. She remembers Overhaul disparaging her and leading her to believe that she is the reason why people are harmed. It would be a long time before all of this trauma was gone. Despite her safety, the seeds of fear and self-doubt remained. She recollected everything. "Your quirk only destroys." She never heard his voice again. A curse. Nothing but a curse. She was still under the influence of Overhaul. Sonic knelt next to her, softer than normal. Hey, don't cry, buddy. Look at me." She raised her teary eyes to meet his. His quills fluttered in the wind, but his emerald eyes remained calm and steady. Sonic remarked, "This time, you're not alone. You can do this. It's just you and the bird. No one is screaming at you anymore." She gently held the bird in her hand, her horn glowing and slightly growing, but she was too scared to help it, so she stopped glowing. What if it caused more pain? What happens if I make it vanish?" "It's simple. You won't. I have faith in you for a reason. All you need to do is believe in yourself," he uttered. Eri took in Sonic's words for a moment before turning her attention to the injured bird and trying to save it. She mentally repeated, "I can save the bird. I can save the bird. I can save the bird." The animal began to be surrounded by light as her horn grew, and after a few seconds, the light subsided and she relaxed her shoulders. After a moment or two, the fully healed bird began to twitch, climbed to its feet, chirping and flapping its wings, and flew on its own, landing on top of Eri's head. "I succeeded. I did it, Mr. Sonic," she cried out. "You betcha," said Sonic, proudly holding up the blossom. "This comes naturally to you. Before you know it, you'll be effortlessly rewinding a variety of items." A glimmer of pride illuminated Aries' face as her smile widened. And, Sonic went on, you'll be used to assist others. Not harm them. That's the true distinction. Although you have the power, you also have the freedom to decide how to use it, and you're already making the right decision, in my opinion. Her eyes flashed with determination as her tiny hands clenched into fists. I want to be a hero too. Sonic laughed, saying, hey, that's what I enjoy hearing now. We'll succeed if you stay with me, child. Sonic turned it into a game, racing to grab random objects for her to try, challenging her to rewind a rock, then a leaf, and more. They practiced for the next hour, rewinding small objects and soothing her whenever the glow flared too strongly. Aries' horn flickered, dimming with exhaustion, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in months, and by the end, she was panting but smiling. Sonic sat on his shoulders and carried her back toward the dorms. It's not bad for your first day of actual training, is it? With her eyes half closed, she laid her chin on his head and said, I had fun. All right. That's the main goal. Sonic grinned, already making plans. We'll step it up the next time. If you swear not to make me into a baby hedgehog, I might even allow you to try rewinding me. Aerie chuckled quietly as she fell asleep. Even though he detested having to wait to save Shadow, Sonic's smile softened once more as he was reminded that sometimes slowing down was important. Because he was hope for children like Aerie, not just a hero. Facilities for Research and Containment of Quirks, United States. In contrast to his final memories, which were filled with sounds of explosions, fistfights, and crashes, this time was unusually quiet and serene. What had happened? Even though he swore his eyes were open, he saw darkness when he opened them. Did he die? Where was he? Why was it so dark? His heartbeat is quickening, doctor. He faintly heard, I think he's awake. When his vision stabilized, he saw that he was in a completely white room with only a large window leading to a lab, where two people, possibly researchers, were staring at him. A few seconds later, lights flashed into his eyes, temporarily blinding him. Then, from a concealed speaker, came the loud voice, Shadow, the ultimate life form, the hedgehog. What an amazing animal. Did you get a good night's sleep? The voice was heavily sarcastic. Shadow was so exhausted that it was already a miracle his eyes remained open, and he lacked the energy to reply. You're not quite the chatter. Well, whatever, he joked, I really didn't come here for that. You are aware that your quirk appears to be extremely powerful and complex, even chaotic. That sounds familiar. Hold on, Chaos, the Chaos Emerald. Are you trying to find this? The doctor, who was holding a gem in his hand that was definitely a shadow, repeated the words over the intercom. If he hadn't been so exhausted and drained, he might have already broken out of here, but the restraints were too strong for him. We will take good care of it for you, so don't worry. However, I do have some inquiries. He spoke as he moved his lips closer to the microphone. What do you think the terms, Super Sonic the Hedgehog, Project Shadow, and Perfect Chaos, mean? While waiting for a response that never materialized, the intercom went silent. You're not going to speak. After a week or so of studying you, I'll do the C. We've looked at your body composition and combat tape. According to the information we have gathered, your skills are so remarkable that they seem unreal, wouldn't you agree? He emphasized the last part of his statement. How did they pick him out of thousands of other strange-looking people, even if he wasn't from this world? Did he know? Your abilities don't meet the requirements to be classified as a quirk and don't fall under any of our quirk categories. Your quirk doesn't work like muscles, but most do. Your abilities are more akin to having a distinct energy within you that you can access, rather than being connected to your body like quirks are. Shadow's eyes narrowed. What was he trying to say? He tossed the emerald up and down in his hand and remarked, and for some reason, this rock seems to react strongly whenever you are around. Once more, may I ask where you're from and what these names mean to you? Shadow's response was silence. Still refusing to speak. Okay, as you like. Do your thing, Sukira. When the sliding door, which blended in with the white walls surrounding him, slid open, Assistant Sukira came in, walked up to Shadow, knelt down, and placed her hand on his head before Shadow's thoughts nearly went blank. His breath caught and his vision became blurry. His body tensed against the restraints, but it no longer felt like metal against his arms. Instead, he was standing in the center of a broken environment, and the sterile white walls vanished into shadowy static. He remembered this place, and his heart skipped a beat. The Ark. No, not once more. Figures appeared through the smoke, not scientists, not enemies, but faces, familiar faces from a different era, a different life. Maria was grinning, just as she had been before the gunshot and blood, but her smile wavered and turned into a terrified expression. "Why didn't you come to my aid? You swore you'd protect me, but you failed," she whispered, her voice distorted and resonating as if it were coming from a cavern. Shaking and gritting his teeth, Shadow said, "This isn't real." His failures paraded before him, but the illusion pressed harder, and more figures emerged. People he hardly knew, all destroyed in violent flashes, friends, allies, innocents. Maria said in a distorted voice, "You call yourself the ultimate life form, with hollow, pale eyes, but all you do is destroy." Shadow stumbled back, but the ruins went on forever. A laugh pierced the mists, cruel and familiar. "Eggman? No, deeper, darker." Then, Sonic. His grin was cruel and sharp, but not the Sonic he knew. The Sonic with the darker fur, the twisted shape, and the violet chaos energy that burned like wildfire. "You believe that you and I are not alike? You think you're better?" sneered the fake Sonic. "You'll also lose control when things get tough, similar to me." He felt the ground crack beneath him, the ruins swallowed by lava that erupted from the chasms, and Maria's and the others' screams twisted into a deafening chorus. Shadow fell to his knees, his chest heaving and his teeth exposed. The lab monitors jumped, heart rate soaring, adrenaline rushing, and Sukira's eyes glowed dimly outside the illusion, her hand steady on his head. Calm and amused, the doctor's voice came back over the intercom. "Interesting, even his mind is resisting. However, fear has a way of shattering even the strongest people," he said, leaning closer to the microphone. His right arm felt numb and he was unable to move it when he woke up, and he stirred slightly but found it harder to move, as if there were an odd weight on him. Gently opening his eyes, he saw the stunning sunset outside the window, the sky tinted a light orange with hints of dark blue and purple. Sunset? Why was it sunset if he had been asleep for so long? A small, horned, white-haired girl was sleeping peacefully on his furred chest when he looked at it. He and Eri had dozed off. Sonic gave up his already dead right arm to allow her to sleep a little longer because he wanted to move but didn't want to wake her. "Look at you, ah. You resemble a cute little father." Mina, Ochako, Midoriya, Iida, and even Mr. Aizawa were leaning over the couch, examining the two, when he turned his voice. "Are we going to actually do this?" he asked in jest. "I dunno," Uraraka said, laughing behind her hand. "You look pretty natural like that. Extremely accountable." Mina elbowed Iida and added, "Yeah, totally," saying, "He's even sacrificing circulation in his arm for her comfort." "It is admittedly admirable," Iida said, adjusting his glasses to conceal his smile. "However, he might want to change his posture to prevent irreversible nerve damage." "Thanks for the concern, Doc, but I'll live," Sonic moaned. "It's actually really good for her," Midoriya said, his freckled face soft and strangely thoughtful. "Eri needs someone with whom she can feel secure. She truly trusts you if she fell asleep in this manner." Sonic hesitated, his chest feeling heavier than hers, something warmer, grounding, as he looked down at the girl's small, serene face, her tiny horn glowing faintly even in sleep. "TCH. Sonic muttered, "I guess I'll take that as a compliment," but his smile revealed the softness in his voice. When Aizawa finally spoke, his voice as flat as ever, he said, "If she's this at ease around you, it means you're doing your job. Continue." Sonic gave him a sly smile. "What's this? From Mr. Eyebags himself. Praise. I will always treasure this moment." "Don't push it," the pro hero said with a sigh, already turning away. "I came here only to keep an eye on you." The group laughed softly, so as not to wake the young girl, and Eri stirred a little before nestling closer to Sonic and making a little kitten sound. It almost made Uraraka melt. "Oh my gosh, that's adorable." Despite rolling his eyes, Sonic said in a whisper, "Yeah, she's pretty great." Still in his sleeping bag, Mr. Aizawa stated dryly, "It's coming, the school festival." September had already arrived. After more tests were finished, Sir Night Eye's funeral was over, and the excitement surrounding Shadow's capture subsided. Although it has been a while since Sonic awoke in Overhaul's laboratory, he has already adapted to this new environment. In fact, he even came to like it. He still needed to figure out how to get home, though. Excitement was in the air as Class 1A exclaimed, "Normal school stuff." Sonic sat there, a little bewildered, while the students jumped up and down in delight. "Festival? Y'all got a festival?" "Yep," Kaminara said. "Every year, we have this huge event where there's games, shows and a bunch of cool stuff." "Oh man, I'm liking this already. We need to come up with something exciting to do," chirped Hagakuri. Kirishima interrupted. Hold on, Mr. Aizawa. Are you sure this is okay? Don't ruin this, Kirishima, Kaminari muttered. Think about it, though. There are villains everywhere right now. You're right. That's a reasonable point. However, there are students here besides those in the hero course. You get the spotlight every year at the sports festival. This is for everyone else. The support course, general studies, and don't forget the business course students. This doesn't get as much attention as the sports fest, but it's still the yearly event they all look forward to. Many of your peers are feeling stressed out by the current conditions here at UA. Especially the dorm system, which had to be adopted because of the hero course. Aizawa replied with a smile. When you put it like that, guess it'd be unfair to cancel it. Correct. So, yeah, it's still on, and hopefully everyone will enjoy it. Though unlike festivals in the past, this year's will only be open to UA students and staff. With a few exceptions. You may not be the focus this time, but your class still needs to participate with some kind of original programming. You need to decide what you want to do today. Also, Yan, Sonic, meet me after class. Aizawa went into a deep sleep after this. Iida and Momo moved to the front of the class while other students were chatting. All right, as class representative, it is my duty to facilitate the process from here. I promise I will do my very best. Let's start. First, we will have a quick brainstorming session. If anyone has an idea, raise your hand, Iida said. As though their lives depended on it, a sea of hands rose upward. Ideas were flying in all directions. A history lesson, a mochi shop, a funhouse, an arm wrestling match, and even a maid cafe. Sonic himself proposed a race, but before anyone could settle on a theme, the bell finally rang. That was a highly unproductive meeting, Aizawa said, waking up from his nap. Decide what you'll do by tomorrow morning. If you don't, we'll go with my idea, an educational lecture. The class whimpered and grumbled, but after a minute or two, Sonic and his teacher were the only people left in the room. With his characteristic smile, he said, "So teach, what did you need me for?" Aizawa remained silent. Simply taking an envelope out of his pocket, he placed it on the Hedgehog's desk. A sleek card bearing an official seal was inside, a license for heroes. Sonic held it up and blinked. Wait, you're kidding. This is for real? In the past few months, the numbers of heroes in Japan has been declining rapidly, and we need to compensate for the falling numbers. Instead of making you take a test, the government reviewed the combat footage from the overhaul raid, Aizawa said in a steady voice. They also received my evaluation of your progress here at UA together. That was enough for them to make an exception as they saw you as generational talent. You're now officially recognized as a licensed apprentice hero. Sonic grinned from ear to ear. Hey, guess even the government couldn't ignore how awesome I am. Aizawa squinted his eyes and cautioned, don't get cocky, a license doesn't make you a hero. Responsibility does. If you abuse it, you'll lose it. Plus, times are getting even more dangerous than ever. You have to be careful. Understood? A bit more solemn now, Sonic pocketed the card. Crystal clear. Thanks, teach. Sonic's thoughts returned to his hospital stay, when he had just begun to get to know this strange world. He recalled Aizawa telling him that he needed a license in order to act heroically, but that he can now do so without getting into trouble with the law. His rescue effort had just become much simpler. By the time Sonic and the rest of the raid team returned from supplemental classes, the vivid gold of the day had already given way to the dark blue of the night. They saw their classmates dancing as soon as they walked into the room. Or at least making an effort. He also noticed a different class of people of various ages playing instruments and making a loud noise. What the hell happened? We weren't even gone for that long, Sonic said. Kaminari exclaimed, oh, we decided what we were going to do for the festival. Adding, we're hosting a concert, was Hagakuri. Mina went on, and we're dancing too. A concert? I haven't thought of that, Kirishima said. That's so manly. Uraraka complained, but I really wanted those mochis. Sonic said, music? Sign me up. I'm nice at the guitar. Juru went on. Really? That's great. We could really use extra musicians. I already got Bakugo at the drums, Tokiyami at the bass, Wow, I've never seen Juru this invested. What's new? Kaminari replied, oh nothing, she's just in her element. When Juru heard that, she blushed slightly. She didn't usually share her passion for music. She would prefer not to tell anyone. This time, though, it felt good to show that people appreciate her passions and to no longer hide this aspect of herself. Yeah, whatever Kami. She answered, still with a smile on her face. But Sonic, why did you get held after class? Oh right. Wait up. Sonic hurried through the communal space and promptly retrieved a glass and a spoon. To make just enough noise to draw everyone's attention, he lightly struck the glass. Ladies and gents, I, Sonic the Hedgehog, am proud to announce that. He reaches into his school uniform and takes out the envelope. He took his hero card out of the envelope and exclaimed, I have officially obtained my provisional hero license, instead. Everyone's mouths fell open. What? Exclaimed Kaminari. Dude, you skipped the test. Sonic smiled smugly and shrugged. Guess I'm just built different. Bakugo, irritated, clicked his tongue. TCH. Don't think that makes you better than me, Hedgehog. Sonic grinned. Nah. Just faster. Bakugo heard Aizawa's voice echoing in his mind once more before he literally exploded. Responsibility. Instead, he leaned back, allowing the jokes to flow past him, and concentrated on Jiru as he described the concert schedule. Sonic wasn't in danger for a change. He was with friends, helping to organize a festival. But even as the room erupted in laughter, he kept thinking about Shadow, locked away, waiting, somewhere far away. First would be the festival. Sonic was aware that his race would soon resume. Sonic, that's the wrong music sheet. What do you mean? Look, I played every note perfectly. Jiro's comment regarding Sonic's performance was, Sonic, those aren't the wrong notes, it's... Wait. Just listen to this. With incredible speed, he struck chords and strings with his guitar pick. As Sonic showed off his guitar-like skills, sound reverberated through the amplifiers. Kaminari questioned, Man, how come you're good at everything? Surely you're better than me in geography, so you're good. Yeah, but I can't absolutely shred it at the guitar like you do. You see, ears, I'm amazing, he said in his usual arrogant tone. When Jiru said, Sure, but that was the piano's sheet you played. After examining the sheet and blinking twice, he turned the paper over and saw it. The sheet was actually incorrect. Well, maybe it was the wrong part, but it still sounded cool, right? You're butchering my strings. The 1A sound crew continued to rehearse for their performance a day after they were chosen for the show. It was all going well. However, Sonic was bothered by something. He observed that Bakugo had been a little aloof from Sonic. He was never this quiet when Sonic was around, not that he was always the friendliest. Actually, he gets louder if anything. However, there was a problem. Like he was aware of something, Sonic, however, decided it was best to deal with it later. Sonic made the decision to stop and look around the campus to see what was going on with the various festival preparations. After telling him what he had witnessed with Eri, Deku wanted to see for himself. With his hands in his jacket pockets, Sonic absorbed everything as he strolled along the main path that connected the gym and the dorms. Sparks danced like fireflies as students welded together exosuit frames in the support course yard, which smelled like hot metal and oil. The business course hung banners farther ahead, yelling slogans and color names across the field. The general studies students were also constructing something that appeared to be a cross between a theater set and a heap of chaos off to the side, close to the little outdoor stage. Sonic paused and leaned on the railing, curious. Hey, he said, what's this supposed to be? A concert or a fortress? A few pupils chuckled. One turned, tall and wiry, perhaps about Todoroki's height, with short black hair that seemed to be unaffected by gravity all the time. His shirt was dusted with sawdust, and a pencil rested behind his ear. It's a set, the man declared, ignoring his hands, for our play. Not that you'd know good architecture if it tripped you. Sonic grinned. Hey, I know a thing or two about balance and speed, pal. But I'll admit, this looks like a lot of work for something that's not gonna move. It moves plenty, the pupil remarked with a faint smile. Just, in ways you can't see. Name's Ryo Takamine, General Studies, Class C. You're Sonic, right? The blue blur? That's me, Sonic said with a nonchalant salute. Hero course. Kind of, it's complicated. Ryo took a crate to sit on and nodded. Are you a transfer? I've seen a lot of people from the hero course, but I don't remember seeing you around campus until recently. Sonic laughed and said, something like that. That made people laugh. The level of tension decreased. Sonic leapt up on a nearby beam and balanced easily as Ryo gestured for him to sit down. Sonic looked around and remarked, You guys really go all out for this festival, huh? It's like the Olympics, but with glitter. For some people here, yeah. It's the one day they get noticed, said Ryo. Without even looking, he threw a wrench with perfect aim at another student. Hero kids get the spotlight all year. The rest of us? This is our moment. His voice was one of quiet realism rather than bitterness. Sonic's head cocked. You say that like you're used to being in the background. Ryo gave a shrug. Guess I am. I tried out for the hero course when I got in. Didn't make the cut. My quirk's not flashy enough. I can sense and analyze vibrations, sound waves, movement, pressure. But it's not battle material, apparently. Sonic's eyes squinted slightly. Sounds pretty useful to me. Maybe they just didn't know what to do with it. Ryo gave a small smile. Maybe. Or maybe I didn't push hard enough. Either way, I figured, if I can't be a hero, I'll tell their stories. That's what the play is about. People who save others in their own way. Sonic wasn't prepared for how hard that hit him. He could see other classes erecting booths and tents across the field. I used to think being a hero meant running in, punching the bad guy, saving the day. Simple stuff. He absent-mindedly kicked his legs off the beam. But lately, I've been realizing it's not just about speed. It's about what you do with it. Who you do it for. Ryo gave him a questioning look. Sounds like something you learned the hard way. Sonic chuckled quietly. You have no idea. They sat silently for a long time. Not awkward, just a little introspective. The school was painted in shades of orange and gold by the late afternoon sun. The sky flickered with color as someone down the hill tested the main stage lights. Ryo reclined. You know, I think you'd like our show. It's about a detective who used to be a hero, but lost his power. He still saves people, just in different ways. That's heavy, Sonic remarked, giving a head tilt. But sounds cool. What's it called? Echoes of Valor. Kind of cheesy, I know. Hey, cheesy's not bad. Sometimes it's the cheesy stuff that sticks. Sonic cracked a grin. I'll come check it out. You'll have front row speedster energy cheering for you. Ryo laughed. I'll hold you to that. Leaping off the beam, Sonic stretched. You know, I thought today'd be a waste of time. Turns out, seeing what everyone's building. It's kinda inspiring. You guys are putting your hearts into this. That's the idea, according to Ryo. Even if we're not the ones saving the world, we still get to remind people why it's worth saving. Sonic remained silent for a moment. He simply grinned, and this time it was genuine. At last, he remarked, you talk a lot like someone who should be a hero. Ryo retorted, and you talk like someone who forgets he already is. Sonic laughed, louder this time, at that. He made a fist. You're all right, Takamine. Ryo bumped his own against it. So are you, Hedgehog. As Sonic turned to go, the sound of the festival grew louder behind him. He took one look over his shoulder as he made his way back toward the Hero Course dorms. Ryo was back at work, calm and focused, leading the stage crew. Sonic gave himself a sly smile. That day, he hadn't intended to make a friend. However, it assisted in clearing his mind of the shadow. The only pulse in the room was the hum of machinery. In a reinforced steel and glass pod, Shadow sat shackled, his body held in place by magnetic clamps that gave off a faint blue glow. The room itself was stifling, silent, and sterile. It was buried deep underground. The glass panels around him reflected his image 1,000 times as fluorescent lights flickered overhead. A team of white-coated scientists kept an eye on the readings inside the observation booth, whispering to one another. A piece of glowing green crystal, the Chaos Emerald, mounted in an energy stabilizer ring, pulsed rhythmically on one of the nearby floating platforms. Like a heartbeat out of time with the outside world, each pulse sent slight tremors through the air. The scientist in charge. Increase the exposure rate by 2%. Let's see if it reacts to the subject's biosignature. But sir, last time it, said Assistant Sukira. Scientist in charge. Do it. After hesitating, the assistant turned a dial. Light arced between the emerald and Shadow's chest, and a gentle whine filled the room. His body tensed, and his eyes briefly glowed red before going dark once more. Technology monitoring. Bioelectric output spiked for 0.3 seconds, then dropped back to baseline. We're still not tapping into the chaos field. Lead scientist. Impossible. The readings suggest the energy flow recognizes him, yet it resists extraction. Shadow's sharp, low voice pierced the glass. Shadow said, you won't find your answers in numbers. The principal investigator looked up. Through the glass, their eyes briefly locked as predator and prisoner. Then perhaps we'll create a reason for it to answer us, said the lead scientist. He made a motion. A new program was activated by another scientist. As they siphoned energy, the clamps on Shadow's limbs started to vibrate more intensely, each one glowing red. He clenched his jaw and remained silent. The monitors turned red. From the containment ring, sparks flew. Sir, the crystal's output is destabilizing, said Assistant Sukira. Shut it down before, said the lead scientist. However, the emerald pulsed violently before they could, launching a wave of green light that threw the scientists backward and broke a few glass screens. The chaos energy flinched for a moment, as though protecting its preferred vessel. Smoke rose from the restraints as Shadow sagged forward, panting heavily. His eyes blazed with silent hatred, but his fur was scorched. The Shadow. You're meddling with forces beyond your understanding. The chief scientist brushed glass from his coat and steadied himself. Principal investigator. And yet, that's how progress is made. He walked over to the main console. Begin data purge. Store everything we have on the resonance patterns. One of the nearby monitors malfunctioned as his assistant started moving files. Static flickered in a red insignia. A mechanical mustache and a recognizable pair of goggles filled the screen. The next voice was artificial and distorted, but it was definitely that of Shadow. Greetings, gentlemen. I believe you've been trying to understand something that doesn't belong to you. The room went cold. The chief scientist scowled and motioned for quiet. Principal investigator. Identify yourself. Let's skip formalities. I've been tracking your little project for some time. The subject in your possession and that emerald are familiar interests of mine. And I suspect we can help each other. The chief scientist squinted. What do you propose? Simple. You want to harness the chaos force. I can show you how. But in return, you'll gather the other 6 emeralds scattered in your world and deliver them to me, along with components from your lab's inventory. I'll need them for my new construction. And why should we trust you? Asked the lead scientist. The deep, arrogant chuckle of the unidentified figure caused the static to pulse with every syllable. Because without me, you'll never unlock chaos energy. You'll only burn your toy alive. The video stream wavered. Schematics, which were far more sophisticated than anything the lab had, started downloading automatically on the screen. Reactor and control matrix diagrams, among others. The scientists looked at each other anxiously. Curiosity triumphed over professionalism and caution in the lead researcher. The lead scientist responded. We accept your terms, but how do we know these schematics are legitimate? Sukira, the assistant. But doctor, we can't do that. We work for the government. What will they say about this? The assistant's voice was ignored by the figure. Oh, you'll find out soon enough. Just remember, every bargain has a cost. With the exception of the hum of the still glowing Chaos Emerald, the lab was left in eerie silence as the feed cut out. Shadow's voice was gravelly but steady as he slowly raised his head. Shadow said, You're making a deal with the devil. Perhaps. But devils make excellent innovators, said the lead scientist. As technicians prepared another test, this time using unidentified data, the restraints tightened once more, humming with fresh energy. Shadow shut his eyes. Like fire, the emerald's light reflected in them. Shadow. He discovered me, then. And the chaos that led me here isn't over if he's building again. When the camera panned out, the sound of the machines blended with the rhythm of a heartbeat. A faint red spark flickered somewhere deep within the emerald, possibly in response to Shadow's command.
So this was it for the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.